Our first meeting of 2023. I would please ask our staff to do the roll call.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. Would you please be so kind as to stand and join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if the audience at home and our audience here today would indulge me for just a moment, I would like us to have a moment of silence. We all lost somebody from this community that we all held very dear. At least I hope everyone held her dear in our hearts. Former Municipal Court Judge Lorraine McNeese passed recently, and I know it's left a large void in many of our lives. Not only was she a friend, but she was a neighbor of mine. She lived around the corner, and she was one of the first people that welcomed me to Oregon City when I bought my house in the McLaughlin neighborhood. And I continued to see her on a regular basis over the many years, as many of us who know her did. So if we could just take a moment and think of her and her family and what she meant to Oregon City. Thank you. Thank you so very much. I know she will be missed, and I'm sure there'll be more details later about whether there's going to be any sort of memorial service or anything of that sort here in our community, and we'll just wait to hear from the family. So on our agenda, we have, at the beginning of this year, we have oaths of office for the mayor and city commissioners. And we have Honorable Judge Amy Lindgren here today to do that. And I believe that, as she just discussed with me, that I am first. So I will step away from the dais. Not a real teleprompter, but close.
Okay, Mayor, please raise your right hand. I, Denise McGriff,
I, Denise C. McGriff, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon,
and the Constitution of the State of Oregon,
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code.
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code.
I will, to the best of my ability,
I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully perform the duties
faithfully perform the duties
of Mayor of Oregon City
of Mayor of Oregon City
during my incumbency thereof.
during my incumbency thereof.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm not going to say a lot. I said a lot the last time, but thank you, everybody. And I just want you to know that I am going to do my very best for you and all of you out in TV land. And Bob, say hi. I'm saying hi to Bob because I hope he's watching tonight. But it is my pleasure to be of service to this community, and know that my phone and my door are always open. And come find me in aisle 13 at Fred Meyer. I do too. Blue is my favorite. I promise me these won't end up on the post office or anything, right?
That was my second.
Oh, anyway, thank you. Gentlemen.
Okay, together.
Are we doing everyone or?
Just you and me up here, Frank, so we're in charge now.
I feel somewhat left out, but I'm in the choir tonight, so.
I don't think Mike.
I don't think Commissioner Mitchell, I don't think
Mitchell's
that
not
you
yet.
have to. Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll get a quick picture.
Well, did it take the first time?
Yeah.
So Jared, after they're done getting sworn in, we'll do a quickie picture.
We'll let Adam do it himself because it's his first.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Rocky Smith,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and of the State of Oregon,
and of the State of Oregon,
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code.
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code.
I will, to the best of my ability,
I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully perform the duties
faithfully perform the duties
of Commissioner of Oregon City
of Commissioner of Oregon City
during my incumbency thereof.
during my incumbency thereof.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I will just say thank you to everyone also who voted. This is not an easy job. It's one that is a lot of hard work. And tonight's an emotional night. I appreciate the moment of silence. This is the first time I've been sworn in by anyone other than Judge McNeese. And I was on vacation when we heard the news that Judge McNeese had passed. It still has not hit me yet. I will say she was probably one of the most amazing people I've ever met. Good friend to all of us. I'll stop there because she was an incredible person. I think also it shows, for my personal life and my personal family who knew Judge McNeese for a long time before I was a commissioner, it's a change in my mind of the city, kind of the old guard. My great uncle was Don Anderson, who has passed away. My great uncle's good friend, Eddie Alec, who was a city commissioner, has passed. Judge McNeese has passed, and many others who have taken a big role in this city over the years. And for which case I probably would have never done this. I probably would have never thought about running for office if I hadn't had a father in the police department or in a family that was so tied to this city. It's something I grew up with. It's something that means a lot to me, and seeing these people that I love who had showed me so much and been really amazing mentors pass on is a huge, it's a blessing in a way, to know that, and by the way, Lorraine, we will not forget you, and we will tell stories about you every day. We still do. And so anyway, I love her very much, and I wish I would have got to see her in the last couple of weeks. But anyway, thank you so much.
I, Adam Marl,
I, Adam Marl,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the State of Oregon,
and the State of Oregon,
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code.
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code.
I will, to the best of my ability,
I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully perform the duties
faithfully perform the duties
of Commissioner of Oregon City
of Commissioner of Oregon City
during my incumbency thereof.
during my incumbency thereof.
Congratulations.
Well, I will just say that this community has given me so many opportunities. It's given my family so many opportunities. Back to when my maternal great-grandparents moved to Oregon City on a berry farm located where the bottle drop now is. I currently live in the house that my mother grew up in. The building, the site where we stand today is where she went to elementary school at the old Mount Pleasant. So this community means a lot to me. And a couple months ago, I was not expecting to be standing here again. I was ready to be done. But I felt the need to continue serving because we've got such a great team up on this dais, and I'm very excited for the work that we're going to continue to do. And I just want to say, I just want to urge my fellow community members to stay involved because that's really what makes this process work, is when people communicate with us what they want to see, what they don't want to see in their community, because without that, we're just 5 people up here guessing because we really do need the community input and engagement there. So with that, thank you, and I'm looking forward to these next 4 years continuing serving. And I'm grateful that there are actually people in the room this time for my swearing in. It's nice because I didn't get that last time. So thank you.
Even though we're not formally dressed, come on down so we get a quick picture.
With him too, the full commission. You get, I mean, that's like.
You already did. So like Rachel, I get to stand in the middle. You want us posed in a certain way, should they be facing that way?
Yeah, you just basically, yeah, exactly. So, yep, there you go, perfect. All right. No blinking.
No blinking,
1,
okay.
2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's a great group of guys, and I can actually say that now because it is a great group of guys. All right, the next on our agenda is the election and oath of office for the commission president for 2023, and has been our tradition in this commission, from what I understand, and also from my past tenure as a commissioner, that we have rotated this commission position. And is there anybody that'd like to make a motion to recommend one of us, not me, of course, to take that role?
It is my pleasure to nominate Mike Mitchell. I've seen him in action over a period of years, 6 years. I've seen him as planning commissioner. I've seen him direct the difficult meetings, and he exhibits a characteristic that Rocky referred to our friend Judge Lorraine McNeese, and she always said that she made sure people are heard, and he exhibits that key characteristic. So I'm pleased to nominate him for the position.
Want to second it?
I will, absolutely will.
Okay, all right. So it's been moved and seconded that we, are we electing or we're appointing him to be commission president for the year?
I think you're.
Or are we authorizing?
I think you're appointing him.
Okay. Sorry, I had to get that in there.
Yeah.
All right, on the motion.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
and Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So I understand the caveat is that I can never go out of town, so, or be away from the commission.
And just to correct myself, it actually, according to the charter, is electing a
We're
commission
electing,
president.
all right. So if you change that motion to electing, that would be great. Right. All right, so next on our agenda is, yes?
Does the commission president?
Oh, yes, you have to go do your oath of office, sorry. You get to also sign your life away. So see, you did have some oath you had to do today.
I feel like the odd man.
You're lucky they made me do it in blood, so, you know, you're getting off.
Do we take the pictures?
Raise your right hand. I, Mike Mitchell,
I, Mike Mitchell,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and of the State of Oregon,
and of the State of Oregon,
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code.
along with the Oregon City Municipal Charter and Code.
I will, to the best of my ability,
I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully perform the duties
faithfully perform the duties
of Commission President of Oregon City
of Commission President of Oregon City
during my incumbency thereof.
during my incumbency thereof.
Congratulations.
And while we're sort of on this topic, maybe it isn't totally a topic but anyway, we have some other swearing-ins that are going to be occurring on January the 18th, and that is also a city commission meeting, so I will see about working with the city manager to adjust the time of our meeting a little bit so that some of us can attend. Attend full swearing-in. So anyway, so I'll work with the city manager on that. Anyway, thank you so much. All right, so now we're to number 4, which is citizen comments, and I have a number of people who would like to, oh, wait a minute, all these are on an agenda. There's nobody on here that is not wanting to speak that's not an agenda item. Okay, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on an issue that is not currently on the agenda? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to adoption of the agenda. We have some items on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve that, or are there any items that anyone would like to have put on a later portion of the agenda? So may I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion, and is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Would you do the roll call, please, Ms. Nomi?
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. All right, item number 8, we do actually have a public hearing tonight. The first reading of Ordinance 2210, approving the 11th Amendment to the Downtown North End Urban Renewal Plan. Mr. Graham, I presume you're at the top of the pops.
Happy New Year, Commissioners,
Happy New Year to you.
and congratulations. Today, we're going to be discussing or voting on an amendment, which happens to be the 11th Amendment to the current plan. It is classified as a City Commission-approved amendment because it authorized additional projects, activities, and/or programs estimated to cost in excess of $500,000 in 2022 over the duration of the plan. And there are projects identified in the plan that would require City Commission approval to develop. It also provides, the amendment that is, provides more emphasis on the goals associated with the City Commission's comprehensive plan. It also incorporates the URC's vision and framework for decision-making with regard to project selection. The amendment categorizes projects as public-private partnerships or publicly owned properties and public infrastructure projects. It lists and identifies the projects that are a priority to the Urban Renewal Commission. The maximum amount of indebtedness of the plan does not change. It contains a disclaimer recognizing that Section 59, Part E of the Oregon City Municipal Code related to the urban renewal is no longer enforceable, as ordered on December 15th, 2022 by the Clackamas County Circuit Court and the Court of Appeals. And so with that, this is the plan for tonight. As you know, the Urban Renewal Commission met and approved the plan, and now it goes forward for your blessing.
Mr. Conkle, could you just, for the public, outline the process of notification that we did for this particular amendment? It's not a land, is it, or it's not a land use action, so we did not go through the typical
The disclosures.
disclosures and those sorts of things.
Correct.
For this ordinance tonight,
Yes.
it would be our typical notification of our agendas that were sent out. So we didn't do any, like typical, like a land use with a measure notice to all the citizens or anything like that. So this was just our typical notice that we do for any hearing before the commission.
Before I open the public hearing, is there any comments from the commission? This is a recommendation from the Urban Renewal Commission to us.
Yep.
As the acting as the Oregon City Commission.
Correct.
And even though nobody signed up for it, is there anybody in the audience that would like to, well, first of all, let me open the public hearing. So let me open the public hearing and ask if there's anybody that would like to speak to this item. If not, then we will go and close the public hearing. So going once, twice, okay. So we'll close the public hearing and ask for commission deliberation. I guess nobody has any deliberation, so may I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 22-1010, approving the 11th Amendment to the Downtown North End Urban Renewal Plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ordinance number 22-1010, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City approving the 11th Amendment to the Downtown North End Urban Renewal Plan and directing that notice of approval be published.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow?
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff?
Aye.
Motion
Motion
passes.
carries. All right, so we have, under item 9, general business, we have 3 items. Updated the Park Master Plan fee schedule, Regional Mobility Pricing Project, National Environmental Protection Act scoping comment letter, 9C, which is removal of an imminent hazard tree located in the unimproved right-of-way of 1506 Monroe Street. I would like to just jigger this around a little bit because I think 9B and 9C will go very quickly, so I'd like to ask for Mr. Lewis, is this your item on 9C? The tree.
So this item was intended to be on the consent agenda. It came late on Friday, and I didn't share that with staff appropriately. So I don't have a presentation. The packet's pretty lengthy on this one. It's an imminent hazard tree. I think the pictures show it pretty accurately and how imminent that need was. The code allowed us to move forward with that tree removal, so the tree is removed. But out of an abundance and transparency, I thought, you know what, I don't want to be on the wrong side of the commission on this. So sharing all that information with you was the decision on Friday afternoon. So other than that, it's a large Douglas fir tree in an unimproved right-of-way. Our intention is to seek reuse if we can. It's not necessarily the type of wood that would be utilized in the kind of things that I think people like to think of for reuse, but the community could probably use it if we can't find a craftsman that can use it. And then the other point that usually comes up is, are we mitigating for that tree removal? And the answer to that is yes, in compliance with the code. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but other than that.
Are there any questions? I would say that, I mean, the pictures definitely don't do it justice. When you go look at it, it's even more hazard-like than the pictures give it credit. So is this something that happened during our storms, or it's just been literally just listing over time?
Well, my understanding is it was reported in the summertime, and we had it evaluated at that time. And the arborist opinion was, while it was leaning, it wasn't leaning as much as it was on Friday, but it was leaning. but it still seemed healthy, so we continued to monitor it, and we heard pretty quickly from the property owner shortly after that wind event. We had looked at it just before the wind event, so we were monitoring it.
Good. Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll
Actually-
move to approve the removal of an imminent hazard tree located in an unimproved public right-of-way adjacent to 1506 Monroe.
Is there a second? Don't all speak up at once.
Second, it's an advisory report
Yeah,
anyhow.
exactly. So it's a motion and a second. Let's have roll call.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Great, thank you. So do you want to just stay up here for the second one, which is the Regional Mobility Pricing Project National Environmental Protection Act Scoping Comment Letter?
I will stay up here, but Dana Webb is going to be presenting this. She's doing the lion's share of the work on this one, so
Awesome.
made sense to have her present as well.
All right, good evening. I'm here to give a quick presentation on the Regional Mobility Pricing Project, National Environmental Protection Act Scoping Comment Letter. Just a little bit of background. So when we talk about this project, we use a lot of acronyms. So I gave you just a quick little cheat sheet here. RMPP, the name of the regional tolling project. So RMPP is Regional Mobility Pricing Project. We often refer to the National Environmental Protection Act as the NEPA Act. And then the work that they're completing to meet the NEPA requirements is called an environmental analysis, or an EA. So those are some quick acronyms that we often use in this work. So right now, what ODOT is looking for is comments on the work that they're proposing to complete as part of the environmental analysis. Those comments are due on January 6th, 2023. So on the visual here, the area identified in the dark blue is the area of the RMPP. So that runs from the Columbia River down I-5 and 205 all the way to the Boone Bridge. RMPP is a separate process from the I-205 tolling, which is shown there in the two orange gantry locations. And then also separate from the RMPP and the I-205 tolling is the interstate bridge replacement. That is another separate process. So trying to give a little bit of a big picture. So the items that they are looking for input on currently is the draft purpose and needs statement, proposed action, and the community and environmental resources. So I wanted to kind of just quickly go over what the RMPP is proposing. So at this point, they're proposing tolling on all lanes of I-5 and I-205 in the Portland metro area, again bounded by the Columbia River at the north and the Boone Bridge at the south. The proposal today includes tolls based on a set schedule. So if you're going to travel the corridor at a certain time, you would know exactly what your tolls would be at each of the gantry locations. And those tolls would vary throughout the day and location. So that's what they mean by variable rate tolling. The system would be an entirely electronic system, and those rates would be set by the Oregon Transportation Commission and would be adjusted as needed. Again, they've stated the earliest start date for the RMPP tolling is late 2025. So they have also proposed the tolling on I-205 would start in late 2024, so approximately 9 months to a year before the regional tolling. Some of the key themes in the draft comment letter presented to you tonight is communication and coordination. ODOT should continue to engage and consult local jurisdictions and stakeholders. They need to continue to look at system versus facility goals. They look for the most part, at their own systems and the impacts to their own systems and not those of local agencies. They need to identify regional alternatives. We can't ask people to change the way they're commuting without giving them options. They need to continue to identify equity at the forefront of their work. The burdens to Oregon City are large compared to other locations. And then continue to understand and identify economic impacts. Again, there are concerns. The way they are moving forward with tolling on I-205, a different method than they're choosing for the regional mobility pricing project. The I-205 tolling is more of an approval process, where the regional tolling is an application for a non-traditional tolling method, which could be denied by FHWA. And so Oregon City continues to be concerned that if the regional tolling program doesn't move forward, that would leave just those 2 orange spots in Oregon City and unincorporated Clackamas County as the only tolled locations in the entire state. So those are kind of the key themes. I did pull up on these slides some of the comments about the goals and objectives. I don't need to walk through those unless you have questions, but really just kind of trying to point out some of the concerns from Oregon City and the goals and objectives. And then I think at this point we're looking for feedback, comments, or concerns about the draft letter.
Commissioners, any comments? I guess I'll lead it off then. I feel that the letter it accurately reflects many of the statements that we have discussed here, not only amongst ourselves, but with our colleagues in West Lynn. And it's also going to be the topic of one of the topics of our joint meeting, and I guess we can talk about this. I think particularly staff, you have very well characterized that the projects are kind of joined at the hip, even though they're separate projects and the ODOT is separating them, but they are really interrelated. And I think your comments here that you've stated here that ODOT's priority is to benefit the freeway system over users and the local road system, which again, we totally concur with. Again, attempting to toll highways passing through the most urban areas of Oregon, suburbs, and farmland, which again, to me, that would be some violations of the statewide planning goals. And then finally, you talk a little bit about HB 3055, and again, this gets to the whole equity issue of those who are going to be least able to pay are really going to be penalized by this. And if we talk about not being able to renew their vehicle registration, that's for some people in our communities, that is going to be the kiss of death. We don't have alternatives for them maybe to take buses and other forms of transportation, so they are driving to their jobs, which could be anywhere in the metro area. And that's going to lead to more people driving without licenses because they're going to be desperate. Not that I want to see that happen, but I think you've accurately articulated this, and I would ask the Commission, unless there are any other comments, to support us sending this letter.
I've got 2 comments, and I don't know if this letter is the right place for these concerns or not. But 2 things that concern me. That one of the goal talks about limit additional traffic diversion, and one of the factors
the goal of the project.
Well, in the letter.
Yeah.
We have a section that says following our comments on the goals and objectives, and one goal is limit additional traffic diversion. And there's going to be a trade-off in diversion based on what the tolls are. And is this the right place to bring forward a comment that the toll needs to be set to limit diversion, or to limit may not be exactly the right word, but to set at a level that will reduce diversion as opposed to increasing revenue? And I don't know if this letter is the right place for that kind of comment or not, but that's one concern. The other thing...
to respond as you go, or just wait for the other comment?
we might tag team on this one, but in my opinion, this is the wrong time to talk about toll rates. I mean, it's so early in this particular project's timeline that it's too early for that. The I-205 project's a little different story, and you'll be talking about that, it sounds like, on the 17th. And definitely ODOT will be here to hear your comments on the 18th of this month. So I think the way that, I think we imply that we want them to establish a tolling system that avoids diversion or keeps trips on their facility as opposed to on the side streets, and I think that's the appropriate comment now.
I think you have the opportunity to put that in, because aren't you sitting on our I-205 tolling diversion committee?
That's me.
Oh, that's you. Okay, so that's where that, I think that comment would be valid.
When I bring that up.
I know you have.
Quite frequently.
I know you have. I mean, again, I mean, basically, the letter is basically parroting things that we've been saying for the last 2 to 3 years, that, you know, there are implications. So, you know, you poke the bear here and something else happens over here, and then you do this, and, you know, it's just, you know.
Thank you.
I think he had a...
One more quick thing.
He's got his other comment, yeah.
In the third to the last paragraph, we talk about implementation of the I-205 toll program prior to the federal approval of the RMPP program, which I agree with, but I don't think it goes far enough, because if the I-205 toll is put in place before the regional toll, downtown Oregon City is done for, because it'll be so easy for people to hop off and on. If it's a region-wide toll, then figuring out a way to divert is a lot more difficult, but I'm really concerned about that time period. As slow as ODOT is likely to move, that time period between the 205, the I-205 toll on the short section and the regional toll. And again, I don't know if this is the right place to bring up that concern or not.
I think we could overemphasize that particular point. It's pretty loud and clear in the meetings, other meetings, that we'd like, if they're going to pursue tolling on 205, we'd like them to wait a year until the regional program is in place. I think we could probably further emphasize that and make that adjustment to the letter. That's a good recommendation.
Great, thank you.
Not that the other wasn't a good recommendation either, Mike, or Commissioner Mitchell. I was just, I think it's early on the toll rate piece.
Understood, thank you.
Our resident expert.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to Dana and John. I always see their name in the Zoom box there when I'm in those painful meetings, so it's nice to see some familiar faces. My problem with this is I agree with what it's saying, but I just don't know if I get the sense that it would also send the message that because I agree that these changes need to be made, that I approve of the tolling period, which I do not. I don't think there should be tolling at all. I think we need to be looking at different ways for how we can be filling the short gap, because there's no question that as vehicles get more efficient, there's less gas taxes paid, there's less money for us to spend on those improvements, and that's something that needs to be addressed. I don't think that tolling is the answer, period, no matter if ODOT was to suddenly become responsive to localities, which they don't. But if they were and were to implement all of these, I still wouldn't support the project. And that's what I have a concern over, is if we approve this letter, that it could be construed, especially to our constituents, that this is what we are supporting. So I'm leaning toward no on this. I know that as it's drafted, it says the entire city commission, but I just am having a hard time with that.
Do you want something put in here that says that the commission has not, at this point in time, ever supported tolling, just as a statement in the letter?
The only situation where I would support them to price on the freeways is if they were to have an express lane. This is something that we've talked about a lot in our committees, is if you want to do one lane and charge for it and then people can go through quickly, or if you want to wait, you can wait and not pay. That's something I'm fine with. But I just don't know if there is a scenario where if we get all of these concessions, if TriMet drastically expands their service and people have an opportunity to use that, if we have all these different things, I don't think I would still be supportive of saying, please make these changes.
Would the commission be amenable to requesting staff put a statement in this letter that basically says that, regardless of, I guess we could ask them to put a statement in here that says that we don't support tolling. And even though that's not the topic of this, it makes it really clear that, even though they've demonstrated X, be aware that our commission does not support this period. It could be something that simple. Would that be okay? I thought about that myself.
So in the, apologies, in
Go
the
ahead.
draft letter, the third paragraph states, additionally, while these comments are intended as comments for the RMPP scoping, they are not an endorsement or acceptance of any proposal to implement pricing along I-205 and I-5.
Okay, well, is that enough?
No.
I'd like to see that strengthened.
Yeah,
Okay.
I read the letter and so.
Okay, so they want to see that strengthened.
Commission remains opposed to any proposal to implement pricing along 205.
Okay.
That should be the opening statement.
Yeah.
Despite what we're about to, despite the comments to follow, we remain opposed to tolling in any way, shape, or form. Everybody knows that I'm militant about this thing, that we can continue to write these kind of letters. ODOT and the state of Oregon march on to the completion of this project. And I sit here and you know how I feel about it. There are the issues of equity and the impact on those who are least able to pay. There's the economic impact on our merchants. There's the economic impact on the saleability of our homes. Who wants to buy a home where you have to pay a toll to get to your own house? This stuff about mitigation of future impacts, you know what? Show me how you can mitigate, how can you reduce right now the impact on these failed or failing intersections? Don't wait until we fail them further. Show me now that you can do something right now to reduce, and they're not. So the mitigation is a joke in my personal opinion, and I say this without reservation. We should be joining with every other community impacted by this, whether it be West Lynn or Gladstone or those down the road, Wilsonville, and we should take legal action against the state of Oregon and ODOT to bring this to a stop. And I don't care what they're not going to listen.
Well, let's have that discussion on the 17th.
No, but I'm commenting on it now because this is
with our friends in West Lynn.
I agree with Mike Mitchell. If you just say, yeah, this letter, that's almost, yeah, well, I guess they're buying into it. No, I'm not buying into it. I never have, I never will. So.
Okay, in light of that suggestion, Mr. Conkle, do you feel comfortable signing this, or would you like me to put my name on it? I'm happy to sign it on behalf of the commission.
It has to have
If
that
it's
first
approved.
Yeah, if it's approved.
It has to have that, without
Right
that
now,
first sentence.
now we've got Tony's, that they've got this draft with Tony's signature on it.
Make no mistake, if approval of this thing does not translate into approval of their plan.
Right.
So
I'm willing to sign on our behalf if that makes it more acceptable. Not acceptable, but gives more emphasis that, we could even say that we reviewed this letter on X date and, we want it to be clear that we remain adamantly, vehemently, whatever word we want to use, opposed to tolling. However, here are our comments, blah, blah, blah. I think we need to be on the record with our letters. It'll strengthen our case no matter what path we decide to take in opposition to this. But if we don't have a seat at the table by submitting something, then we don't get to play in that sandbox. So we have a seat at the table. We've got representatives on these committees. We've got staff attending, and we are doing everything we can to basically express our opinion and our concerns about where this is going.
I do want to say that this topic, this specific topic, and the 205 tolling topic have been a difficult box for staff to play in. Right, we're given these boundaries, and I'll tell you, at the staff level, with other agencies, lots of frustration about what we can do, how we can contribute to the kind of concerns that are well above our authority to resolve. So we're kind of confined to working within the confines of this. If we don't provide you a draft letter, what does that mean for you? We don't always understand or know how that's going to play out, but we think if there was legal action, if there was a legislative solution, which really comes at the policy level, then I think having these letters matter. They help that case. Without them, they don't. We don't have that authority. And so I think this letter is timely. It's the appropriate thing for an agency like Oregon City to do, but strengthening and bolstering the requirement that, or the statement that we are adamantly opposed to tolling, whether it be I-205 tolling or the regional tolling, is a great feedback for us to take.
Okay.
And we're here to support with regard to a legal filing. We've talked to other agencies that aren't quite sure how to pursue that either. Maybe West Lynn has a lobbyist, and maybe there's a solution there. We've talked about wanting to partner with them. Clackamas County, I think they feel the same way you do, but they, at least last time I heard, they hadn't really taken an official position on this. So there is that. I mean, so I do think elected officials, communicating with elected officials about this program is going to be the ultimate. If there's a demise to tolling, that's where it's going to happen.
I agree. Any further comments? Yes, Mr. Smith. Then we've got to get to.
So was this solicited? I mean, or is there a time frame that we? There's a reason. So ODOT's requested these comments.
They've requested some comments, not those specific comments.
Actually,
They've
the
requested we
process,
respond.
right? The process requires the comments. Yeah, it's part of the NEPA process. So that's a federal process that the state is going through, and they have a timeline that. The other piece to this is these timelines are incredibly challenging, and
For a reason. Yeah, there was a reason for that.
There probably is.
And so I guess I feel the same way that Commissioner Morrow does. And I've seen this in multiple regional type of things, West, for instance, how many times we've said, at least we have a seat at the table. And how often has that bit us in the ass? Having a seat at the table is just a way for us to confide and to kind of slowly move a project along, because we aren't completely saying, hell no. And sometimes we have to say, hell no.
I've said it.
And so I think, I don't know that this letter does that, and I don't know if it's way too nice. I mean, thank you, and thank you for listening to us. Oh, it's got to be a little bit more than, that's way too nice. I don't know then, why do we just, say, forget this letter, have a conversation with these other, municipalities that we're going to have, and we can write our own letter as a joint letter or whatever. But I don't like it. I was willing to kind of change the wording of this to be pretty harsh, but then I got this, at least we have a seat at the table, and I've heard that before by several mayors, and it was a big mistake. So
well,
I do not support it.
I disagree with you that being there, I represent the city on the Metropolitan Policy Advisory Committee, and
I get that.
I have stated.
Just look into my comments in the past and where that has got us. It doesn't always work, and so that's a red flag.
Well, I feel very strongly that we need to submit some comments so that we are continually
get
on.
the majority of the
I understand that. I'm just saying that we need to be able to participate in this process. The NEPA process is a lot more stringent and a lot less flexible than some of the other processes that we've been involved in. And again, as long as we keep saying this, we're not the only ones. So we know that the other jurisdictions are out there, and they are also participating in this as well. Because again, the more that the federal government hears about what our concerns are, whether, they're not saying they're listening, but we've got our name in there, we're on the record, we can basically come back and say, look, we have participated in this, we've been talking to you, and again, for me, it's not the length of time that we've been talking to them, although, I get frustrated about it, But in discussing at the Metropolitan Mayor's meeting, this is something that's on the agenda to continue to push back and push back and push back. So the other cities in the metropolitan area that are affected by this are also participating in this as well as we are. And so we have a united voice, even though we're not signing one letter, we're all pushing the same rock to ODOT to basically say, and the Fed saying, we need you to listen. And again, we don't know where the ballot measure is going to go, but, if that's successful, I know that there's been discussions with now Senator Mark Meek. He is aware of this. There is also, I saw recently some draft legislation which I need to send to Mr. Conkle so he can send it out to you for a proposed bill about this. I haven't finished reviewing the whole thing, but I'll get that out to you all so you can take a look at it as well. It was sent to me by West Lynn to take a look at. So I think that we need to send something in so that we have a toehold in this and that we can go back depending on where we go. And if we go where Commissioner O'Donnell is suggesting, we can use that as evidence of our continuing to make our case to say, this is why we don't feel good about this. This is why we don't support this. I think it's okay to be, professional in our correspondence. We're not going to just tell them, hell no. But we could all send our own letters to this and say, we could write hell no and sign our names to it. But I think this is going out from our staff, and our staff has been very closely aligned with what we've said because, they're not convinced either. They haven't seen any of the documentation that's needed. They're asking the same questions we're asking.
Somehow we have to have 3 people that agree with that, so.
Yes.
Thank you. On the matter of having a seat at the table, regardless of if we send this letter or not, we're still going to have a seat at the table. I'm still going to be spending my third Wednesday lunch hour sitting in that Zoom meeting with ODOT. That's not going to change whether we send this letter or not. So I'm still in the same place. If this does not fail and people on this commission still want to get the point across, there is a public link where I'm sure you could copy and paste this and send it personally.
Well, as somebody who has sat on various committees as an advocate for this commission and realizing that the commission didn't listen when I gave input on various matters similar to this, I'm going to vote however you vote because you're on that board and you're on that committee, and if you say no, I'm saying no.
Commissioner Mitchell?
You're a voice on there.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Well, much as it pains me, if you don't put any response on, ODOT and the state can say Oregon City chose not to participate. We've received no input from Oregon City. If we're going to submit this letter, we talk about putting things in bold. The first sentences need to be a clear statement that we do not support tolling in any way. Secondly, the program is flawed because you have to do this, as Commissioner Mitchell said, regionally, not just one road.
This is about the bigger system. This letter has to do with that big blue Y that we saw on the map.
I just want that bold opening statement. I know you don't want me to talk about this tonight. I'm not interested in the language of diplomacy. I'm interested in a clear message. I don't want to beat around the bush. I'm ready to, if we can pool funds with other jurisdictions that are impacted, we write a common letter and we present a unified front. And if that ends up tying these folks up in court with an injunction as the project becomes less feasible, well, good for us. So I know we'll have that discussion with other jurisdictions, but this is a government and an agency that is not listening to those most impacted by their decisions.
Yeah, I agree with you about a joint letter, but we don't have time to do a joint letter. Each jurisdiction is sending in a letter on their own as a metropolitan region. They're not signing a joint letter. The joint letter has gone. This is us responding Westland responding, Tualatin responding, Tigard responding to this request about the NEPA process.
And ODOT will continue to roll individually until we form a
Right, well,
coalition
again, this is-
and pull
this is-
funds and say, we're going to fight with
This
you.
is the federal process that they have to go through, so we need to
I'm
respond
fine
to
with
the
this
feds.
process. I'll even agree to this with those caveats on those
Fine.
opening letters.
I-
And maybe I should just
I
defer
support
to
that.
Commissioner Marl as the leading authority on this, but you know how I feel about it. I don't want to beat it to death.
Go ahead.
I agree with Commissioner O'Donnell. The first sentence needs to clearly state our opposition to tolling in any way, shape, or form. But I think it's important that we do submit the letter, because I wouldn't want, first off, it's an opportunity for us to, in writing, say we're opposed. And secondly, I wouldn't want them to assume that our silence is tacit agreement to what they're doing.
That's what I worry about.
I guess I'll make a motion to approve this letter with the revision that the first sentence states our clear opposition to tolling in any way, shape, or form.
There's a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do you want me to take a look at the letter that staff drafts before it goes out, since I'm going to sign part of it?
Is that a yes from the city manager?
I guess, I thought it was a great idea to have the mayor sign it, coming from this elected body. So we could change the signature, incorporate the changes that we heard, have the mayor review it before she signs to make sure it meets, which we believe we're all hearing here tonight.
I'm happy to do that. And I can get with staff before Friday to take care of that. Let's have a roll call.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
No.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff. All right, let's move on to item 9A, update on Park Master Plan fee schedule implementation contracts, MOUs, and I guess the whole kitchen sink. Because that's kind of what it looks like to me. Well, at least you're walking, but you still got the boot though, right? Our staff kind of got broken there a little bit.
City Commissioners and Mayor, tonight I'm here to provide an update on the implementation of our new master fee schedule. I will also be discussing the status of negotiations of all the contracts and all the MOUs with the new fee schedule. So to provide a little background of kind of how we got here, in October 2020, the Parks and Recreation Department hired a consultant, Amelia Consulting, to help with creating a financial support and sustainability strategy policy. That work was completed in March of 2021. That work included numerous public engagement meetings, meetings with the City Commission, meetings with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, also meetings with community stakeholders to provide input to help define community benefit and individual benefit. And all this criteria was used to help with the placement of the service categories that's on the model that we have today. And it also determines ultimately how we use tax dollar investment. On October 2021, the department requested approval of the financial support and sustainability strategy policy, and that policy was officially approved via resolution. So the question is, why are we doing this? Our objectives were to break down any system-wide and inequity issues, to promote a culture where we focus on department-wide financial sustainability. We try to discourage any attempts to set fees and charges based on special interests, age-based services, or individual values. We wanted to make sure that subsidy allocation, cost recovery goals, and expectations were aligned in the beneficiary of services. And we wanted to promote practices that are fair, equitable, and responsible. Here is the financial support and sustainability strategy that was approved. You'll see the listing that goes from common good to individualized good. Each service category has a subsidy attached to it. The more individualized programming and services has less subsidy, and the more community-based programs and services have more subsidy. So our communication plan. We began reaching out to the community and many of the organizations that we work with starting in November of 2021. We displayed the model on our website, summarizing the work, the objectives, the intentions. We also listed the master fee schedule, and we wanted to make sure that we used every avenue that we had in regards to getting that information out. We also met with community user groups. We discussed user agreements and fee adjustments. We also sent out letters to user groups that we were working with to notify them of the changes. We posted fee adjustments in our trail news, our monthly e-trail news, social media channels, and we also created press releases. Also in July of 2020, we did include our RV park and Ermitinger rental fees to that master fee schedule as well. So master fee schedule implementation. So for our aquatics department, what we did is we looked at the pricing structure. We evaluated the pricing structure and restructured it to provide a simpler strategy. We created a 10 punch card system. We implemented an option to pay in increments. We used scholarship funds to help with subsidizing swim lessons and camps. We also added additional programs to help with the restructuring of our membership and to add additional benefits. And we waived all fees for lifeguard certification classes for those interested in trying to obtain a job at the pool. So the Pioneer Center, they did implement their building rentals fees on July 1st. They sent out brochures, forms. We also posted online information. With parks, park shelter reservations, those fees were also increased on July 1st. We included the resident and non-resident fees, and most reservations are now being completed online with our new Smart Rec registration system. Fee implementation at the Clackaman RV Park increases occurred in October of 2022 to provide enough time to get information out. We also incorporated online registration using our Smart Rec registration software in November of 2022. So memorandums of understanding. When I first started here, we had some issues in regards to communication with people that we collaborated with, volunteer groups, organizations, meeting expectations, understanding what those expectations are. So one of the things that I incorporated is the use of memorandums of understanding to help clarify roles, responsibilities, to help meet expectations. Many of our memorandums of understanding don't involve money at all. There are two situations in regards to where we have memorandums of understanding with volunteer groups. One is the Friends of the Ermitinger House. Our relationship with the Friends of the Ermitinger House is extremely special to us, and we've had an MOU with them since 2018. The difference with the memorandum of understanding with this particular Friends group is we have a profit-sharing relationship with this group, and in particular, that outlines when we work together on programming, how do we split the proceeds? Because obviously for us, we want to recoup some of the money associated to cover overhead and expenses, and then they also recoup some of the money as well. So we've had an MOU in place since 2018. We recently started having conversations with the Friends group all the way back in January of 2022 to discuss the new MOU. With the Friends group, their MOU went through August of 2022, so we wanted to allow enough time to have some conversations about our relationship, clean up the MOU, clean up the language to make sure everyone was on the same page. So, as I said, the goal of this is for us to work together to help provide events and fundraising. So you'll see listed here, when we do work on events together, we have a 50-50 split. We also...
Should you be on another slide?
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgot my, my clicker. Excuse me.
Assistant clicker.
Yeah. So we do a 50-50 split with programs that we work on together. We also discuss providing free access and free time for the Friends group to work on their own programs. And we talked about how we were going to move forward on events where they came in and did events inside the facility and didn't utilize staff. So as of right now, we haven't finalized that agreement. We do have a meeting coming up tomorrow to continue that discussion. But we look forward to that meeting, and we look forward to continuing to work with the Friends group. We were also able to negotiate an MOU with the Clackamas County Historical Society. We enter into this MOU with the Historical Society to partner on field trip offerings and special events between the Ermitinger House and the Stephen Crawford House. And the revenue split is 50-50. The goal is to do more marketing and to branch out into Oregon City schools to make people aware about opportunities for field trips at both facilities.
Do we have an MOU with the, Oregon City Parks Foundation?
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. We have been working on an MOU with the Parks Foundation, and the reason behind that MOU is when I first began my position here, there had been some issues in regards to the management of the pollinator garden at the VFW. We had worked with the Parks Foundation on the pollinator garden at the VFW, but there were some communication issues. Ultimately, a lot of the pollinators were damaged and needed to be replaced. And our goal was to mend that relationship and make sure that we meet the expectations of the Parks Foundation. We chose to replace all of the pollinators, and what we wanted to do was sit down with the Parks Foundation to talk about what their expectations are, clarify roles and responsibilities, discuss maintenance and communication so everyone could be on the same page. We don't have memorandums of understanding with all of our volunteer groups, but in this particular case, there were issues associated with an ongoing project, and we wanted to have the opportunity to make sure we knew what their expectations are and to clarify roles and responsibilities. And that was the goal for that MOU. All right. Memorandums of understanding, we were able to successfully negotiate MOUs with Oregon City Youth Sports and also Oregon City Soccer. We did implement a tiered fee structure to lighten the burden placed on these groups. Moving forward, we agreed upon an amount of $5 year one, $7.50 in year two, and $10 in year three, gradually get them up to the actual rate. Hillendale Pickleball Club, we made several attempts to negotiations with the Pickleball Club. However, we haven't come to a resolution with the Pickleball Club, and we have started having conversations about how we are going to kind of move forward and unwind this relationship. But we've left the door open for continued negotiations and continued conversations around how we can work together on continuing to have a relationship with the pickleball group. With the pickleball group, we offered them similar rates that we offered Oregon City Youth Sports and Oregon City Soccer, half the rate. We also offered to invest in buying additional equipment to reduce the burden on the Hillendale Pickleball Club. And we offered to also work with them on programming to offset some of the costs, some joint programming. So unfortunately, we still don't have a resolution, but we will continue to have those conversations.
Kendall?
Yes.
A quick question for the Oregon City Youth Sports Park.
Yes.
Those $5, $7.50, and $10 fee, are they per player?
It's per field.
Per field?
Per field.
Per game? So
Per game, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I guess he's still going.
That's
so,
fine.
Yep.
All right. Independent contractors. And my clicker here decided not to work anymore. All right, independent contractors. There's been a lot of conversations around independent contractors. We worked with independent contractors for many years. Independent contractors are people who come to us who are interested in providing a service and running their business out of our facility. They're interested in offering a service within our facility to our community base. And so what we noticed was that there was discrepancy in regards to how we were managing our independent contractors, particularly between the pool and the senior center, and that we needed to align our practices, we needed to align our standards. So we started having some conversations about what we were going to do in regards to aligning our standards and our processes moving forward. And then we started having conversations with the contractors in October of 2021. For those groups that we had contracts with, that we had end dates with, we were working with them on a graduated system to eventually get them up to the new percentages, which we'll talk about in the second slide. The contractors at the Pioneer Center didn't have end dates, but I directed all staff to start having those conversations no later than March of 2021. And then we wouldn't have any new percentages start until July of 2022. So this next slide kind of highlights some of the discrepancies that we've had in regards to kind of how we were managing our contractors. You'll see the different splits in regards to the aquatics contractors and fitness contractors that we had and the Pioneer Center contractors. So what we did is we changed the splits to 60-40, and the ones that we had at 50-50, them at 50-50. What we did is we allowed the contractors that we can currently we're working with to gradually increase over time. So if we had a new contractor, in order to give them the ability to kind of ramp up their business and clientele, we would start them off at 70-30, and then in the second year move them to 60-40. And then our established contractors would be at 60-40. With the Pioneer Center, the plans were 70-30, and then they would go to 60-40. So we also created a new application for the contractors in March of 2022, which included the list of services, the amenities, and a new personal services agreement template. We did leave the door open for other percentages on a case-by-case basis. So if someone had an issue with any of the increases, we would have some conversations with them and be able to negotiate percentages based on their services, how we decided we wanted to move forward. So this is a copy of our current master fee schedule. We have all of our prices listed here. And it contains all of our aquatics and recreation prices, our parks and shelter and park rentals prices, rental prices at the Pioneer Center, also Ermitinger prices as well. So the options for tonight is we would ask that continue to support the department plan to use the financial support and sustainability strategy model with no changes, or to recommend changes to the financial support and sustainability strategy with the master fee schedule.
Can you just clarify? Your question was the rate for ball field. You said per game, and it's per hour, correct?
Per hour, per field.
It's $5 per hour per field.
Not per.
That's a different answer.
Per game.
Different answer.
Yeah.
That's different than per field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious what these contractors, what services are they providing?
Most of the,
We had the lady come in with foot care.
yes, we currently have 3 independent contractors that we're working with. One is a yoga instructor, and one is a ukulele instructor that we work with, and the foot care nurse. What ended up happening with the foot care nurse is during some transitions with staff at the Pioneer Center, she was informed at a later date, and in regards to kind of the changes that were happening in regards to the percentages. I wasn't notified of any issues associated with the percentages and wasn't notified until she actually came to the city commission meeting. I met with her, addressed her concerns. Obviously, that's a service that we want to provide our clientele. We assessed her rates, made sure that she had a rate she was comfortable with, and she's currently happy.
For me, it's always about, is it a public benefit or is it a specific group, as your schedule shows? So
Right.
we'll hear from others tonight.
Right.
Do you want to hear the public comments before we get into our discussion? Absolutely. Okay, all right. We're going to go to the public comments first. And if I may, Scott, would you like to come up? And we've talked before, but would you tell me how to pronounce your last name again? Because I can't quite read your handwriting. I'm sorry.
Scott Costanzo.
So N-E-O?
A-N-Z-O.
Okay, that's a Z. All right.
Yep.
Okay. C-O-S-T-A-N-Z-O. Okay. All right. Thank you. I thought it looked like an E. Sorry.
Hey, I'm left-handed. I've never had good handwriting.
I'm left-handed too, and I'll compare handwriting with you.
I think I smear more than I actually write.
Anyway, thank you so much, Scott.
So I'm here on behalf of Oregon City Youth Sports. We handle all the baseball operations in our city for anywhere between 500 to 600 kids per year. Currently, we do not have to pay for the usage of the fields. So we handle the weed picking, we handle the dragging, we handle the chalking, we handle replacing the bases when they break. We do our best to maintain the fields to the best of our ability without interrupting our neighbors. I've been a resident of Oregon City for 38 of my 41 years. I was a member of the Oregon City baseball program when I was a kid. So I've been involved for a very long time. I've been on the board for the last 5 years and been coaching in the league for the last 11 years. So my knowledge of what we do is pretty extensive. What I would tell you is, as a nonprofit, we do everything we can to keep our costs as low as possible. So to do that, we use many, many hundreds of hours of volunteer labor to accomplish giving our kids the best facilities possible, the best playing surfaces possible. And all in all, we do our best to serve 500 to 600 kids in our community and give them an additional outlet for good in their life. And I think that's the most important thing that we provide the community. What I would tell you is, in keeping our costs as low as possible, that's why we use volunteer hours. As it stands, from the money we collect with our registration fees and the one league fundraiser we do, we bring in almost $100,000 a year. That being said, that doesn't cover our expenses. If we don't do above and beyond fundraising that we do, we would actually lose about $6,000 a year just in what we're currently doing. So having to pay an extra $5, $10 per hour per field, the rough math that we did, basing it on a great year with weather, right, we're looking at almost $30,000 additional cost to our program. In order for us to do that, that's 4 fields at Chapin. If we get to use all 4, it's 2 fields at Hillendale. If we get to use both of those, we also have Rivercrest. So to say that's a big expense on our part, it is. And we feel like we do our best to pay our fair share. That's why we pay for the chalk, we pay for the turfus if the fields are wet. We actually have a gentleman on our board that does our field work for us. We actually pay him $16.50 an hour, which is an absolute bargain for what we ask him to do. But he also volunteers many more hours on top of that because, again, we're trying to keep the cost down for our youth so that they can participate. We don't really obviously feel like this is a great use of our money for us to have to pay. Yes, there was negotiated tiers, but it was only negotiated because we were basically told this was happening whether we wanted it or not. We didn't have a choice. So if that's the case, right, we're going to try and do the best we can for our members. Is to do, we can tier it to make it easier as we proceed. Sure, we'll take that. It's better than being told, hey, you're getting $10 an hour straight off the bat. Yep, looks like you had a question.
Can we ask questions?
For clarification.
I would like to ask just a couple of questions.
Is he finished?
I don't know, but I can wait for the question.
Yeah,
I have a couple of questions for you.
I think the most important thing that I'd like to say is this Oregon City Youth Sports Organization has been a nonprofit since 1978. Obviously, I haven't been alive that long, so I couldn't tell you exactly how it's operated for that long, but we do everything we can to support our community. As somebody who's coached and volunteered and done everything I can to provide positive experiences for the children in our community, I'd say that for the most part we do a great job. We ran a tournament this year for one of our youth players that unfortunately took his own life last year. With all the different things going on in his life, we weren't able to save that one, right? So our goal is to have the name of Jorge Uribe be the only one that we can't benefit more positively than that. We actually took all the money we raised from that tournament, which was $3,200, and we put that towards a scholarship fund for any of the youth players that can't afford to buy cleats, a bat, a glove, a helmet. Those things, if you're a family that can barely afford the registration that we have to pay, and your kid grew and he needs all of those new things, you're especially at the older levels. A decent bat is $300, a good glove is $100, cleats are $100. Those monies add up quickly, and so we do everything we can to provide as much as we can to every kid that wants to come play baseball and enjoy that. So we just, as an organization, we oppose having to pay these fees. We feel like we do more than our fair share to maintain the fields that we have. We rarely ask the city to help do anything for us. We realize that there's not bodies to do that. Aside from the money that we spent just on our field guy, we paid him $10,000 just in the hours that he claimed that he worked, aside from the hundreds of hours that he volunteered, and then the 400 to 500 hours of board members that volunteer to do the same thing on field day cleanups, and just overall trying to make our fields as best as we can. And the last thing I'll leave you with is, Mrs. Mayor, I know you were on the Metro Council that approved the grant for us to turf the field at Wesley Lynn. That project was over $90,000, and the grant was $44,900. That means that the Oregon City Youth Sports had to cover all of the rest of it. And it took us years and years and years to save that much money to be able to afford this project. And our intent was, we had some people lined up to help us with the excavation and things to save money so we could eventually turf both fields there to give our youth more opportunities to play when the weather's not great, because basically we live in Oregon, it rains a lot. But the process took longer than we wanted to, and all of the volunteers we had lined up were no longer able to do it, so we ended up having to spend the additional money that we were hoping would help us pay for a second turf field on excavation and gravel and everything that we hadn't planned on paying for. So we feel like we've done the best we can as an organization to provide every service we can, and trying to minimize the cost to the city. And we just, if these fees were guaranteed to go back into improving fields and improving the overall conditions of what our players are going to use, I'd be okay with that. But as far as I understand, those fees will go back into the general fund, and I realize that the Parks program gets their funding from the general fund. But for me to go back to our members and say, hey, by the way, these new fees are coming, we're going to have to raise your rates by $50 to $60 just to cover those costs. And by the way, as we understand it, we are not going to get help with weeding, we're not going to get help with dragging, we're not going to get help with buying the chalk or the turfers or any of the things that go to making fields playable for us to use. I just don't feel like that's something that's fair to ask of them, is to pay the additional fees and really not get anything for it. We as an organization don't want to say we shouldn't pay our fair share. If there's costs incurred, we'd love to help you pay for them if that is necessary, but we feel like the amount of time that we spend, we've more than made up for the costs incurred to the city. So we just ask that these fees be reconsidered.
Thank you, Scott. I know we went on over our time, but I thought it was important that you get to say what you need to say, and we can go from there. So Commissioner Smith, do you have a question for Scott?
Or two, or three.
Okay.
First question is...
Just mind you, we have other people that want to speak to you.
I understand that, but this is going to be a long night, because we haven't even broke the surface of it.
I understand. Let's be positive, please.
I'm super positive. I want to listen. My question is, I'll point out that if everyone was happy with the agreement they signed, this audience wouldn't be full right now. That's one thing. So finding out how we got to that signed agreement, I think, is really important, because you kind of said something about that. You're currently right. When did that new agreement get signed? And then when does it go into effect, the $5?
It would go in effect, I believe it actually started in the what we consider our fall ball season, because we had to rent a few fields.
It already started.
It started in October of this year. Right, Chris?
But yet you said you're not paying for fields, that you're using...
Up until October, we have never paid for fields.
Okay, but you did start in October.
It started in October of this year. We used a couple of fields at Chapin Park this fall.
So it was signed for September-ish, and then October it was in effect. Okay. I think that answers all I need. Thank you.
Do you have a question, Commissioner O'Donnell?
I do. I want to understand the financials here, Scott. You said the $30,000 that you'll incur, is that based on $5 an hour?
That's going to be based on the full $10 per hour per field, knowing we rent the fields for practices and games, so it's 4 to 5 days a week for every field. To be safe, we want to say we need it from 4 o'clock till dark. Realistically, it's
4
5
o'clock until dark, you said?
Right, because when it gets dark, you can't.
Yeah, dark, okay.
Yeah, as one who previously coached, I remember how hard it was to get practice fields.
And each practice field we have actually is shared by multiple teams, just so we can
Yes,
get
it
everybody
is.
time on the field.
So your recovery, you're saying $50 per participant based on 600 kids that you service, 600 times 50, $30,000.
It's closer to 60, but again, we try and do as much fundraising as we can to keep the cost down.
So your current budget of $100,000, you say you even have a shortfall on that at the end of an operational year?
Yes. If we didn't do Snack Shack fundraising and different fundraisers throughout the year at various businesses that support us, fundraising efforts we do just to offset some of those costs, we definitely would not be able to do what we do.
Yeah, I feel very strongly about this because I coached for years, and I feel that you're not teaching just a sport, you're teaching a life lesson. And I think it benefits a huge segment of the community, many of whom, from my recollection, were having trouble with just the fees as they existed at the time I did it. So if you're looking at, increasing a child's contribution 25 or 50, that's prohibitive. And I think our job is to service our community. And I do know, because I live next to Chavin Field, I see the amount of work that goes in by OCYS personnel. I see them dragging and pulling and watering and preparing. And I think there's a lot of good work there. So when I look at the community that's served as a whole and the benefits of that, because one thing you want to do with a child is keep them active, and teaching them a skill goes a long way too. I'm struggling with the fact that these people are going to have to ask for, at the lowest, $25 per registration, and then go up to 50. I can't tolerate it, to be honest.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Before the fees, how much did a child pay to participate?
We tier it based on the level. The higher the level, the more costs we incur with umpires and everything else.
Okay, so what's that range?
The highest we charge now is going to be $250 for a 7th or an 8th grader.
I'm talking about
previous?
Pre-fees.
It would be $200 would be the most expensive we were charging.
Okay, and the lowest for the younger age group?
Chris, do you remember what the T-ball? $50 for T-ballers.
So 50 to 200?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, this isn't maybe a question for you per se, but I can't imagine that any other jurisdictions, I presume you have some sort of a league that you talk to other people in other jurisdictions, and I'm sure other jurisdictions charge to use their fields.
We have Westland.
I know you probably looked this up, so.
Yeah, Westland currently does not charge their youth organizations to play games during the week. They will charge them for tournaments on the weekends, but they don't charge during the week. Clackamas said they rent anywhere between 4 and 6 fields during their season, and they charge $2,500 to $3,000 total.
Clackamas is not incorporated, so what were we talking about?
The city of Clackamas.
There is no city of Clackamas. It doesn't exist.
Happy Valley Clackamas.
Okay, Happy Valley. All right, there we go. Happy Valley.
They charge at max $3,000 a year.
Okay.
And then Gladstone pays a little bit more than most at $25 per kid.
And that's per kid or per use?
Per kid. That's what their president told us was $25 per kid.
Okay, and then I'm assuming Lake Oswego has
They
some
don't
chart.
use many city
I'm just thinking about the
parks.
cities that are surrounding us, so.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, part of what I'm, struggling with is that we do have other jurisdictions, and I know that when we were talking about the cost recovery, process, and I don't know whether you participated in that. I'm assuming somebody from youth sports participated in the process.
I believe our president.
So I know that I'm not justifying anything, I'm just saying that I know that there was some, because that was one of the questions I asked, was back then in 2020, is it, okay, what are our neighboring communities doing? What are, I don't think we were trying to be on par with them, but we were trying to see what we were doing, what other people were doing. I mean, you don't want to always reinvent the wheel. So again, I know that there are.
Well, keep in mind, Gladstone, who does charge the most, is half the size of Oregon City.
Yeah,
we are the largest
Yeah,
youth
we
baseball
weren't basing, I
organization.
wasn't basing my comment
Right.
on size. I was just looking, whenever I start looking at things like this and others, I say, well, okay, what's everybody else doing? Because it's not meaning that we have to do it, but at least we know we have some basis to say, okay, they're doing this, they're doing this, doing this. I know that, and Commissioner Smith is going to tell us anyway, but I know over the long history of all of this, it's unfortunately, it's been, everybody's been used to not paying for anything. I mean, I'm not saying that we should, I'm just saying that that's what everybody's used to. It's not youth sports, it's everybody. And I think it has a lot to do with, the condition of our parks is that, we don't have, not that this is all going towards that, but one of the things we heard in our livability comments, people like our parks, but they wish that the parks were better maintained. Well, we don't have the people nor the funding to do it. We have, since I've lived here, and I've maybe lived here longer, because you said you've lived here 30 years. So I'm right,
years.
I'm also in there with you. And I've been here about that long too. And, our parks are just, we're probably going down for the third time, is kind of what I said. So Commissioner Smith, thank you.
I think there's more public comment.
Yeah, so go ahead, thank you. Does anybody else from your group want to say anything, or he's said it all? Okay, well, let me call Bob LaSalle. And Happy New Year to you, Mr. LaSalle. I think that's fantastic. I noticed that right away.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Bob LaSalle, and I'm the Chair of the Citizens Involvement Committee. At the CIC meeting of October 3rd, 2022, the idea of using neighborhood association postcard funds to pay for park fees for neighborhood activities was brought forward. Opinions were offered by every member of the CIC in attendance, none of which were favorable to the idea. I sensed a feeling of insult and betrayal in the room. It was mentioned that the commission could add money to the CIC pot for neighborhood meeting notifications to offset those costs. Well, that doesn't make any sense, that you'd simply be trading dollars within the city budget. It would amount to borrowing Peter to pay Paul. That's not to mention the accounting nightmare. Some of the neighbor associations would never use that money if it was allocated, as they typically don't use the parks. So what happens to their money? Mr. Conkle recently expressed concern that the CIC liaison is expected to do too much for the CIC. This would simply add to that burden, more accounting. The unanimous opinion of the CIC is that this is a totally unfair, absurd, and I'm using words that were brought up at the meeting, silly, ridiculous, and not well thought out idea. As I said at the meeting, surely you jest. The CIC felt a letter from the CIC to the City Commission was not necessary for such a poorly thought-out suggestion, as their opinion was unanimous and recorded for anyone to see. But since so much time has passed since that meeting, I thought a reminder of the CIC position would be in order. By the way, the word rogue was mentioned in reference to use of the parks. I can expound on that if you wish.
We get the message,
I've kind of
if
thought
that's
you
what you're
would.
conveying.
We'd like a section added which would exempt the neighborhood associations from fees for park use. And I thank you for your attention. I'd like to hear some responses.
Thank you, Bob. I know we had we had one person here earlier that signed up, and I'm just checking in to see whether she is online and wants to say anything. It was Dee Dee Dahlstrid. So Dee Dee, if you're listening and you want to get into the commission meeting, it would be much appreciated if you're online. So we'll give her a few minutes. Did you have some more questions, Commissioner Smith?
To staff?
The staff?
Yes. Okay, so I have piles and piles of paper up here, and so I'm trying to figure out a way to go through this. This is so overwhelming, and I think part of why things have slipped by the commission a little bit is because it is so overwhelming. I've spent a week going through it, and I'm still only scratched the surface of it. And so I'm going to ask a couple questions of staff so that I can get direction on how to maybe figure this out. My understanding of it is that when this was first brought to the commission, and we'll just take one piece of it, which is the field use. The field use was pitched to this commission, or the commission that was here at the time, $3 an hour for field use. That's what was presented to the commission. It then came to us in October and was approved by that commission without the acknowledgement that that fee had changed from $3 per hour to $10 per hour. We voted on it, and in the documents, if you look, yeah, it was changed. I don't know how it changed from the 3 to the 5 once it got approved. So my understanding is that when we approved it in October, the commission approved $10 an hour. Is that correct?
Commissioner, the fee for field rentals began in 2012. We've always had that fee. We just
no, I'm talking about the specific amount.
What I'm trying to explain to you is this $10 fee is not a new fee that needed to be approved. We already had that fee established since 2012. What we were doing is creating MOUs to reduce that rate to a lower rate. What was presented to the city commission was a draft of the fees.
And the draft said $3?
It started off at 3 as what we needed to be at in cost recovery.
Why would you present it at 3 if it was already at 10?
We were what we were asked to do is to show examples of how the fee could progress over several years. And so what we were doing is presenting examples of the progression of the fees.
I don't think that was clear to the commission, honestly, at the time. And I will speak for myself. The rest of the commission or the commission in the past can speak for themselves. This idea that it was in our paperwork is $3, whether it was always there or not, or whether it was $10 always there or not, it said $3. It then got approved in October, and it was $10. Right in October, that's when the public started saying $10 an hour. How did it get $10 an hour? And then we started as a commission saying this needs to come back to us immediately. I know we were saying it then. And it didn't come back to us. So it went to CIC and they had their discussions. And then somehow in that same month, you negotiated $5 with Oregon City Youth Sports when $3 was presented to us, and then it was at 10, and now somehow we agreed with 5, and now we're coming back to the commission. To me, it's at 3. And way to get the buy-in from the community is have them sign off at $5 and come back to us and say they've signed off at $5, and now instead of that 10, we're going to negotiate at 5, when it really was 3 that was presented to us originally. The commission, I don't think, understood any of that. I think the commission at the time assumed it was $3 when it was approved. We assumed it stayed $3, but it was changed the paperwork to 10. That I have a question about. So I think that is something we need to clear up, because if it's as confusing to me as it is to the general public, I spent a week trying to figure it out and still can't figure out. And we can say, well, maybe it's right that it was always 10. I don't know that. That's what I'd like to know, but that's not what the paperwork shows. It's so unclear to me. So I think there's a do-over there to figure that out. The other thing is on the MOUs, like I said, if Oregon City Youth Sports knew it was $3 that we were presenting, they wouldn't have signed the document for $5 an hour. Pretty sure that wouldn't have happened. I believe they were asked to do that. I know that, or I'm assuming that, because there is no MOU with the Friends of the Ermitinger House. There's an MOU that expired in December of 2021. And that MOU never came to the Friends group except for a week before it expired by the city, completely changed. And so the MOU with the Ermitinger Friends group has been a back and forth for over a year. It's now been a full year, and the Friends group still hasn't signed it. One, because there was never an agreement to split funds 50-50. That has been something that has been changed over this time. So the Friends group hasn't signed off on the MOU. They still have concerns about it, so that's still an open-ended thing. I don't disagree that we have to, we do need to increase fees. We do need to figure out a way to figure out these issues. But I think it's so complicated, and there's other things intertwined. The special event use and all of that. I went online today, again, to try to go through the process of just what it takes to rent a structure, what it takes to rent a building use. The interesting thing is, and all of the building use right now is going online, correct? If someone wants to rent a facility, most of it goes online.
They still have the ability to book in person.
Yes, but a good share are going to go online.
We utilize the registration system. For those who want to go online, they can. For those who still want to call and interact with a person, we'll do that as well.
When you go online, and let's say I saw on there today $40 an hour for the Ermitinger House, I click on that button. Since I didn't register, I didn't get to it, but I'm assuming that you pick whatever shelter or whatever structure, whatever you do online, you click that, then it takes you to the payment based on what fee it says on the front. Or does it open up other windows?
It would take you to other areas to process the payment, and then someone else would follow up with you.
Okay, because right now, all of the fees that are on the online process are all non-residential. They're all the highest. So if I go on there right now and say I want to rent the park shelter, the breakdown in this analysis here shows the residential rate and shows the outside the city rate. But if you go online, the only a rate to choose is the outside the city rate, which I assume that's the only option that's there. It doesn't specify the either two. It shows right off of that. So for instance, I looked up Hillendale Park. It gives the outside use to rent shelter rather than the residential. So you don't have a choice to pick between the two. You get the higher choice. That I have a concern about. The other issue that was raised in the community, I think this actually was online, and I think Commissioner Morrow can speak to this because I'm trying to remember. I think there was a conversation online where many people were outraged about this fee. There, I believe, was a response by Commissioner Morrow, who I think had contacted staff or whatever, was trying to explain these are why the rates are being changed. And I can have him, I don't know if that's true, if you did reply online to that. You did. And what was your response?
My response was just trying to inform people. I think the way that it was being communicated was that if you want to use a park, you're going to get charged for it. And I think a lot of people were responding to comments that were being made saying, they're going to charge us for this, and I was trying to refocus the conversation to where the fees were actually going to be charged.
And where do the fees actually go?
The fees actually go to the general fund for the Parks and Recreation Department. But in doing so, that creates margin for us to better utilize tax subsidy to tackle deferred maintenance, which is $23 million.
You may, but it doesn't mean you are.
But if you have this huge hole of expenses and you give it away for free, how are you going to do that?
Okay, let me read this. So this is what's on our website right now. City commissioners adopted a cost recovery policy on October 20th. All these dates seem to be around the same time, which requires payment for exclusive use of the fields. No one's arguing that there shouldn't be a payment for the exclusive use of the fields. I agree with that. The question is how it was done. But here it goes on to say this, and it doesn't say may, and it doesn't say could, it says this is what the money is doing. If money goes into the general fund, there's no guarantee that that's where the money is going. And here's what it says on our website. All courts, $10 per hour. So it still says the $10 per hour, right? For residents and non-residents, 15. And the city reallocates, and then it says subsides, which I assume means subsidies, which is misspelled. But it says reallocates subsides to programs. So I'm assuming it says reallocates subsidies to programs. It doesn't say may, it doesn't say could, it says we're reallocating to these programs with inclusion assistance, open access parks and amenities, human services such as Meals on Wheels and transportation, senior services for veterans, counseling, enrichment, wellness programs such as camps, preschool, enrichment, and field trips. Has any of that money right now gone to any of that? Has any of that money been directed? It all goes in the general fund. It doesn't go to any of these unless somehow
well, think about this. If you have those programs and you're not charging a full 100% cost recovery, it's being subsidized because there's costs associated with every program and service we offer.
But then you need to track it and you need to show the public where it is, because right now it's in the general fund, and the general fund is just not going to be reallocated randomly. I mean, the public needs to know to what degree where that's going. It's just misleading. If it said may or could do this, but we're not doing this right now.
So let me ask you a question. If we provide a program and services where there are costs associated with it, and we tell you you don't have to pay for it, who's paying for it? How are we offsetting those costs? Where's that money coming from? That money's going to come from tax subsidy. So it's being subsidized.
I don't think the commissioner's question is what you're portraying. I think his question is, when you're collecting a fee for the use of a specific facility and it goes into the general fund, it gets commingled with all other funds, and there's no guarantee that then goes to support
specific
this.
money is going to.
So you have the accounting to say we collected X amount for these, and we spent X amount in support of these very programs. I think
I
that's
think
what
it
he's
shows
asking.
that money is going directly to these programs.
But that's highlighted in our financials between revenue and expenses. So I can go look at our financials right now and look at what money we brought in regards to revenue compared to 2019, 2018 pandemic levels. So I can say, based on where we are right now, we've increased our revenue by 5%. So we've increased our sustainability by that 5% in the short period of time that we've incorporated these master fees. So it's already showing that we're increasing our sustainability by charging fees for services that are being provided for the people who can pay. The whole goal is not to arbitrarily set fees based on arbitrary measures. Is it a community benefit or is it an individual benefit?
All right, the only last thing I will say is I do think regardless of whether this commission approves a future proposal or this one, regardless of that, that yearly the Parks Department still comes back to deal with fees. I don't want some rubber stamp, which I believe we already did, that basically says Parks Department doesn't have to come back to increase fees. I think having these fee increases, somewhat spelled out is a good thing, but I think we still need to check in on it once a year because, as we know lately, not every year has gone exactly the way we planned, and there needs to be some ability to adjust that with the community, how the fees work, and having this idea that we've signed off on something and it doesn't come back to us yearly is not something I'm willing to support.
Commissioner Mitchell.
I want to hear the other public comments, but I do want to get clarification. So I want to make sure I understood. So youth sports has been paying $3 an hour per field since 2012?
No. They haven't paid anything since we've had a relationship. They paid zero until just recently when we incorporated this new master.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought I heard you say that they've been paying since 2012.
The $10 fee was established back in 2012. So the question was about where did the fee come from for field rentals? We've always had the fee. They were just never charged.
So the fee was on the books but never collected?
The fee was never collected. So if they're saying that, hey, it's going to cost them $30,000, and if we had a relationship with them for the past 10 years, which has been longer, how much have we been subsidizing them? $300,000?
And the fee was always $10?
The fee was always $10. And we're not saying we're going to increase the fee more. We're saying we're going to stick with this fee that's back in 2012. We've absorbed all the increases. We've absorbed inflation and cost increases. We're just going to say we're going to cut your rate in half so it won't put an undue burden on you to get you up to the $10 rate that was established back in 2012.
I just don't get how the $3 was put in there if it was always 10. I can show you where it says.
We should have been more clear about the draft of fees that were presented, but we were trying to show the progression over time in regards to how fees could
So I'm not crazy.
over time.
$3 was in there.
There was a $3 charge in there that showed what our cost recovery needed, where we needed to be overall to recoup and recover our costs, as an example.
But it wasn't a fee.
I want to see documents predating that showing it was always $10. I'd like to see that.
I suppose from my perspective, from a user's perspective, what am I getting for what am I paying? So when I look at a field, what are the demands on the field? Well, the grass always has to be cut, right? I mean, I see people use that field all the time, and they're not playing sports. They're out there with their dogs, or they're walking, or they're whatever. So that's a fixed cost, and I don't know that that should be allocated against one group. youth sports takes care of the infield itself and everything surrounding it. I don't mind them being charged a reasonable fee, but I just think that, we obviously know we have a parks system that's in need of money, no question about it. The question is, how do we get it? You categorized who benefits. Does the community benefit, or what did you say, special groups? Individual groups benefit. See, my feeling is youth sports, the community benefits. They benefit because I keep juveniles occupied, I teach skills, I teach respect and honor and sportsmanship. They're not out turning into, with too much time on their hands, doing things that will cost us in other ways. I know there's costs associated with fields. I'm sure that in the course of a game, restroom use goes up. Certainly it does. But I think it has benefit to the community to minimize the requirements on that program to pay. And maybe this needs to be a bigger part of the budgetary discussion once again. I'm sympathetic to what you're trying to do to get us on a healthy park situation, but I don't want the burden to be on what I perceive as a community at large. And if I listen to what you just said, Kendall, this fee existed since 2012, but was never collected. A $10 fee. I think we should come up with a different rate. Mr. Costanzo presented other communities and what they charged, and I believe some of those may have been fixed rates for the year. Was it $3,000 for the year? I look at some of these kids, and they have no other avenue to keep them busy other than this. So if I have to subsidize that, I'm willing, at the expense of the park's maintenance, and I'll look for my monies elsewhere. That's what I'd say.
Mr. Morrow.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Kendall for coming to speak about this. The reason why I had wanted to bring this and prioritize it for our first meeting was because, as we heard from Mr. LaSalle, myself being the liaison to the CIC, I'm hearing about this constantly. And so I also want to make sure that we include not just youth sports, which is a very important component of this, but also our city-recognized neighborhood associations who feel like they do not have the money they need as it is to get more neighbors involved and send out postcards, and then being asked to pay if they want to use a shelter for a neighborhood meetup or something like that. So that's something that I hope that we'll be able to include in that, because I would be inclined for neighborhood associations at least to exempt them. And then on the matter of the youth sports and other general, well, you don't need to light that.
I'm turning my own light on. You can't see, we have these green lights up here, so I'm turning my light on because I'm going to speak. So anyway, thank you.
I'm glad that we're at the agreement that there should be some sort of charge to recognize that there is a difference between a city-wide event where everyone's coming to, like the first city celebration, versus something that's a little more individualized and is for the exclusive use of dues-paying members. And so I'm glad that we're at the baseline there. After having heard this history that I was not aware of, and I do agree with Commissioner Smith, I think that a lot of the stuff that I thought would be the case for this policy when we originally unanimously adopted this policy did not turn out to be the way it was. And so I would support us taking a look at keeping the fees in place, because as we've heard, this is something that is not unusual for municipalities to do, but for us to look at how we can make this more financially sustainable, not just for the city, but also for the youth sports. Because I agree, as someone who was a participant in the youth sports 15 years ago, I agree. And then lastly, on the pickleball issue, I'm sorry to hear that it hasn't gone as well. I've had people with experience in other cities who have said, well, the city just administers programs like that themselves. And I have the understanding that the city has offered to do that, at least to certain groups, so that they're the ones who are collecting the funds, they're the ones who take the risk for insurance purposes, and they're the ones who provide the people, the personnel, and the payment of those personnel. So I have heard that, at least in areas where it sounds like there's just been no progress, that our staff has been negotiating in good faith. But again, despite all of that, I think we need to take a look at lowering those rates, at least right now.
I'm going to ask Mr. Wiley to, Dee Dee Dahlstrid would like to speak, so we need to call her.
Yep.
And get her on the line here. But here's the issue that we are grappling with. How do we achieve equity and parity? Because the minute we start saying, this group is exempt, this group is exempt, this group is exempt, my pet project group is exempt, how does that, I'm not saying I have the answer, I'm just saying that that was one of the things that I have been thinking about ever since I've been hearing about this, which has been over a year, about parity and equity. And we have to do something that's equal, or what we're going to be accused of discrimination, and we're being unfairly supportive of this group but not this group. And I don't have the answer to that question. Do we have her yet?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Well, let me ask a question. At the moment, is soccer being played or is soccer over? Anybody know?
Not in the rain.
They
Well,
play,
they do
believe
play
me,
in the
they play in the rain.
Yeah, they do.
What does Oregon City Youth Sports need for an answer, and by when, about these fees? And you can come forward, Scott, I need to hear from you. You have an initial sign up, it happens at some point.
Registration just started last week, 2 weeks ago.
They did, they already
We just
started.
opened registration, yes.
Okay.
And I
Kendall, go ahead.
Thank you, Scott.
We're talking about equity here. So for many years, we provided the fields for free to Oregon City Sports and Oregon City Soccer. But other groups who wanted to use our fields told them they had to pay. So we've had this inequity for so many years, and then we developed this system with a graduated scale in regards to this tiered system. You can't find a field rental anywhere in this region for $5. None.
$5 an hour.
$5 an hour.
Okay.
It doesn't exist.
Because when you told me $5, I kept thinking, $5 for the whole field? Why are they complaining about this?
We've looked at the fees that other people are paying. They have a great deal. We value the relationship with them, and we don't want to put an undue burden on them. But we still come back to the point of we have exclusive use. We have an organization that's charging fees for their services, not doing it with no charge. I could wrap my head around to say, hey, you're doing this for free to the entire community, and you don't charge them anything? I can get behind that. But if you're telling me that, and you're telling the taxpayers, you want them to subsidize an organization that's bringing in about $170,000 a year, the taxpayer said they don't want to subsidize that.
I don't think that's a fair representation. Oregon City Youth Sports is a 501c3 organization, is it not? They are not for profit. No, this is my turn. I know what it costs to put a kid on the field. I know what a bat costs. I know what uniforms cost. I see what fees have become. All I'm asking is there's a community benefit. It's different if you have an adult soccer league that wants to go down there and play, charge them all day long. If you have an industrial league that wants to play, charge them all day long. But I'm talking about benefit to the community versus specific groups.
So how are you going to pick and choose?
I don't know.
Tell me, how do we pick and choose? Because we're saying we're going to take this one group and treat them differently than everybody else.
And I agree that that is a complicated thing. But then how do you explain to an organization that writes a grant and spends thousands of their own dollars that they don't need to do basic maintenance for our fields? And I know this has happened in the past because way before you actually, probably 2 parks directors ago, there was a swim team that wanted to put swim events on at the pool. The pool said we have no money to replace the starting blocks. The city said, we have no money to do that. So that group went out and raised all the money, well, half of the money, I think, finally, themselves, to put the starting blocks on. Now that's just basic maintenance of our pool that we refuse to do. But that group raised half the money, and then eventually the commission decided to match it. That should have never been done. That should have been an expense by the city. What I'm trying to figure out over these years is, yes, we should have equality here to some degree, but it isn't equal when you have a group that rents the field from outside the city that comes in, and another group that spent thousands of dollars of their own money to match a grant with us to do our own basic maintenance in a park. That has happened. Optimus Club put all the electric in that park at Clackamas Park, and they were charged, they shouldn't have to pay the same rate for that. There has to be some accounting for figuring out in-kind groups that give back to the city, I think.
So you're saying we should do quid pro quo? If you
No, that's not,
if you
No, I
work
think
with
it's
us,
not. It's not. Let him finish.
if you work with us and work and collaborate with us, we're going to cut you a different rate, because Oregon City Schools is a nonprofit. We charge them for use of our pool. So you're saying we should not charge them for use of our pool?
No, I'm not saying that at all. But there should be some.
But you have to be fair across the board. They're a nonprofit as well, so they shouldn't pay either.
Fair doesn't necessarily mean equal.
No.
You can be fair
Yes.
based on an organization's goals and what they provide to our city, and give them a break compared to an outside group.
And every sports organization will say the same thing in regard to their impact to the community. So you're going to have to say every sports organization gets the same benefit.
No, I don't.
Okay, hang on. I'm gonna-
You just talked
yeah,
about
they
the
just said that,
value
yeah.
of sports organizations.
I differentiate between the youth sports and an adult soccer league and industrial league.
Let's say it's another youth sports league that comes and says, hey, we don't want to pay either. We have this great impact to the community. We'll help maintain fields too. So should we say they don't pay either?
Do they get an in-kind credit for their contribution to maintenance?
So let's quantify.
I asked a question. Do they get an in-kind
We've
credit?
never said that we were going to do anything in kind in regards to the lining or the dragging of the fields.
So we should
That was never an agreement that we had with the organization.
Then I think general community groups should know that if they are partnering with the city for matching grants, they shouldn't be doing it.
But it has to be outlined
They shouldn't.
in an agreement that outlines
do it
what that
anymore.
relationship is going to be. When they came to us and started talking about the Metro Enhancement Grant and the artificial turf fields, we said, this is a community benefit. We cannot, we cannot provide you any special benefit for going after this Metro Enhancement Grant, because the requirement to get the grant was it has to benefit the entire community.
And I have multiple other examples where that has happened, where those groups were not being helped. Well, I don't want to get into it all, but there has to be a way. Right now, if these groups have gone out of their way to create grants to basically do what is basic maintenance for the city, they shouldn't be doing those grants. They should be putting their money into their own groups, and then there's not an issue. But what I'm saying is, in the past, the city has kind of done that, and grandfathered ways in where they've done that. And so if that's over, then we should communicate that to the public. Keep your own money for your grants and don't partner with the city, because they should pay for all of those repairs themselves.
Hey, let
And
me
we should.
take a time out. We do have somebody on Zoom that wants to make a comment, so if we can take a minute.
Dee Dee, if you could unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Yes. I'm sorry, I was actually there earlier, but I have such a hard time hearing in the room. And also, I just wanted to confirm that you all, the commissioners, received a letter from the Oregon City Parks Foundation on January 2nd, possibly could have arrived on the 3rd, from Roger Fowler-Tyus. I was going to read it, but I can't read it in 7 minutes, and we know how I am.
Did we get, I didn't get a letter.
But if you guys can look in your packet, we're very concerned about the MOUs. We did go to a joint meeting. We took lots of notes. It's very intimidating for somebody especially our size, but we have contributed greatly over the 7 years that we've been participating in the city, and from working at Waterboard Park to the Zersky to Friends of Buena Vista House and getting that on the national historical destination, getting power put back in it. Huge effort in 2001 with the Memorial Parks Fund and allowing getting over 50 kids into camp. We continue on with our heritage program, but that is very intimidating. So I encourage you to read Roger's extremely sincere letter that was put forth for the membership.
Thank you, Dee Dee.
I probably already used my 3 minutes.
Well, you're fine. We just have to get a hold of the letter. And
It was sent to apparently all commissioners, and we suggested that you have sent it to staff too, but I'm not sure exactly. Roger was the one who sent it, so, and he confirmed that today.
I don't see it in my email, and I'm looking on my phone.
Commissioner O'Donnell says that he does not see it in his email, and I cleared out my email today, my city email. I did not see any letter from Roger, so we will get the letter. Hopefully he sent it to the recorder team as well as the commissioners, but maybe he didn't. So
I will confirm that and get you a copy.
Yeah.
But yes, we've been trying to work with it. It's just that the letter is so intimidating, and
you're talking about the MOU, not the letter.
The MOU, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. And then just as a neighbor in Barkley Hills, when we went to do our neighborhood park, it was very hard for us to come up with a fee to pay for the park when it was over what we didn't have in our treasury. So, and I think you heard that from every single Frank. Did you get it? Or Bob expressed that concern from all the neighbors as being charged to have their neighborhood meetings or picnics or gatherings in any of the parks. So I would stop that now. Thank you very much for reaching out to me because I just assumed I was leaving the meeting. And so thank you very, very much for reaching out. I will make sure you all get a copy of this letter. We're very concerned about the park fees with nonprofits, especially as small as us that don't have hired staff and or any full-time staff at all. But our membership is low and volunteerism feels very unappreciated.
We're fine.
You get less people showing up, and it's showing already. Thank you very much. I'll stop.
Okay. Thank you, Dee Dee. Commissioner Mitchell.
Thank you.
I apologize to the other commissioners. I got the letter from Mr. Fowler-Tice yesterday. I missed the fact that it appears to be just been addressed to me. I just forwarded it to a recorder team.
I have it.
Okay. I think it may have gone to individual commissioners, but he may not have had everybody's email address, and I missed that. But I just forwarded it to Mr. Wiley, and he can
Yeah, I can tell you, trying to read it on my phone is like, forget it. I can expand it and so much, but yeah, I get the general gist of it. Okay. Okay, yeah, okay. We're going to take, since I can't quite see the clock, Mr. Conkle, can you tell me, is it saying 20 till?
9:40. Yes.
Okay, we're going to take a break for about 6 to 7 minutes. have us continue to maybe 10:30, no later than that? Because we're getting to the bewitching hour, or it's not my personal bewitching hour, but as you know, guys, I'll be up till the crack of dawn.
And it can be just consensus. It doesn't need to be a formal vote.
Okay.
It can
He
be a
said we don't need a
consensus.
vote,
Just consensus.
So do we have a consensus to go till 10:30?
Till 10:30? I'll
We
go
have-
to 10:30.
We have three
And then
more,
I'm
we have
pulling
three
the
more
pin.
items we need to get to.
Let's do it. Let's go.
So I think, Mr. Reed, you have presented a plethora of information which has been helpful. I appreciate the information from the Oregon City Youth Baseball Group. I appreciate the information we got from Dee Dee, although we didn't all get the letter, but we'll read that later. I think we have a couple of questions, and as I posed it earlier, is that we need to figure out a way for this to be equitable and fair. Maybe not equal is not the word I want to use, but equitable, so that we're kind of on a par. I can't answer the question as to why we weren't charging the fees, and I'm sure Kendall probably when he got here was like, what? You know, why were we not charging when we had ordinances or documents that were on the books? But that's under the bridge, and we can't go back there. So let's try to go forward. Maybe an option is looking at trying to get a better understanding on what we're asking for people to do in these MOUs. Each of the organizations is different. I mean, the MOU for the youth sports is not going to be the same as the MOU for the Parks Foundation or in any of the groups. So those all have to be negotiated individually. But I think in terms of fees, I would like to recommend that we possibly revisit that, and we look at maybe having staff talk to us about an option of a flat fee. Maybe that is the way out of this, and we obviously have some people on our Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee who have been in Kendall's position, and you know, maybe there's other options. I don't know. We're just not going to solve it tonight, and I don't think we should proceed any further because we have several things that we need to resolve. Fees is one, MOUs. And what was the third thing? Sorry, I wrote myself some notes here.
Contractor.
Right.
Contractor charges.
Yeah.
Neighborhood.
Yeah, neighborhoods. So if staff could make a note of that, we can try to, they're interrelated, but I think we have to take them separately. And Mr. Morrell, you had something before I close this out?
Yeah, and another thing that they had brought up was if looking at the fees, or if we want to do a flat fee, or we just wanted to cap it at a certain amount once you reach this, regardless of how much you use it. I would just throw that out there. And then also, I would like to see a way that we can get some more robust transparency measures in there so that we're aware and can communicate to the public and to our stakeholders where the money is going, rather than just saying it goes in the general fund, the Parks Department is a part of the general fund. I would feel more comfortable if we had that information at our disposal so that we could communicate that to others.
Okay, I think that's great. Okay, so we're going to,
Can we also, for the sake of the various organizations that have expired MOUs that are being asked to kind of sign off, can those be on hold? Because those
you
groups,
mean new ones or
ones
just
that
keep
are
operating
ones
under
that have
the existing?
expired and have not been renewed. I don't think the Parks Foundation's MOU is signed. I don't believe.
No, they've
the
never
Friends-
had an MOU before.
Okay, but they're trying to get one resolved.
Right. I would say if we haven't got it in place, then basically what we need to do is we just need to kind of, like I said, we need to revisit it.
The Friends of the Ermitanger House expired a year ago. There's
Right.
not, they haven't signed it. They're trying to negotiate, but they're not going to sign off until this is figured out.
Right. Well, then the way most MOUs work, even if they expire, you kind of continue to operate under
the old one. That's what I'm asking.
So, Mr. Conkle, advice on that expired MOUs, or Mr. Kvaisman?
Sure. To the extent MOUs are considered, contracts and agreements.
They're agreements, not a contract.
The parties continue to act in the same ways they have in the past. Essentially, you continue to operate under that agreement, even though you're past the term.
Right.
So we can keep operating like that. And
I I agree.
Okay, all right. Okay. So let's try to work on that, and we'll try to break that down. Anyway, thank you to everybody.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm going to when I bring this item back, we're going to focus on the fees, the MOUs, and the contractors.
Neighborhoods was also.
Well, that, to me, the contractors and the neighborhoods kind of all go in that kind of big pot.
Okay, so bring this back in a work session type setting?
Yeah, and I think we have to, in terms of the fees, I think, again, the information that was prepared by the consultant has done some cost, as I recall, and I have some of the old copies, they did cost comparisons of, what's going on in other jurisdictions. That's just a guide. That's not saying that's what we have to do. But I think we need to make a decision about whether we want to do an hourly rate or whether we can still get to a point with our Parks Department by having a flat fee. I think the issue we have also is that we have people charging other people to use our parks, and I don't support that. We can't have people coming in and saying, well, you get to charge a fee for this when, that's a public facility if they're not reserving it and they're not doing that type of thing. So that's another dilemma that we've got going on here that is kind of outside the scope of all of this, but is obviously existing in reality.
But I think that's what the MOUs are trying to address, are those
Right.
special circumstances where there are, whether it's a profit or nonprofit, that's
Yeah.
charging a fee to be a part of the organization to then use public resources.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Okay.
I think the work session needs to consider the value of the services rendered by these volunteer organizations and what it would cost us to perform the same services, assuming we had the manpower, which we don't.
I don't know if we can quantify a value, but we could talk about something.
We sure
to do
can.
with- Well, we can talk about something that might be what was suggested previous, when I first came on the commission, is about in-kind. Because I'm sure I could quantify any group.
Well,
to
an
say that
in-kind
it's
is
a
a
value
value.
to the community.
No, an in-kind is a value.
Well, that is a value, but that you can actually put your
And the
finger
other
on.
thing, think about this, if that group did essentially a $45,000 contribution out of their pocket to do a permanent improvement to a city park, what's the value of that?
Yeah, but you were talking about something else, the value of the organization. I don't want to get into that because.
No, that's not what I was talking about.
Yeah, okay. All right, so let's move on. Mr. Conkle, you want to talk to us about the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2022.
Yes, thank you. So we've attached the annual comprehensive fiscal report for Oregon City. This is including the letter from the audit firm, Aldrich CPAs and Advisors LLP, which is to the commission and is required per the firm's auditing standards. Included in the report are the results of the independent financial audit performed by Aldrich. They issued an unmodified or clean opinion once again. I'd be happy to ask Mr. Zook to come up if you have any additional questions.
Oh, I would love for Mr. Zook to come up because he always has something interesting and invigorating to inform us about our financial position.
And he looks enthusiastic, too.
He is feeling very enthusiastic. I could tell that. He asked me earlier, was he going to get to speak tonight? And I said, absolutely. I wouldn't even, I would not even pass that up.
I'll address that tomorrow.
Nowhere to go.
The primary thing I wanted to tell you was that the cover has the arch bridge on it, recognizing the 100-year anniversary of the bridge. And we also are recognizing that Oregon City is the first city west of the Missouri. So we did make that change. All kidding aside, we've had a good experience with our new firm, Aldrich & Company. It's nice to have a new set of eyes. We did have some new input and really worked well with them. I'm pleased with the work of the staff. Pretty much entirely new staff was working on this. Aaron, Deputy Finance Director, Aaron Wilkie, also did a really good job. I think the city's, hopefully this report it's not the easiest to read. It complies with all the federal government standards and the state standards. Plan to submit this for GFOA Distinguished Financial Report Award. And other than that, there's a lot of numbers in that. You have a question about the financial statement, I can answer that for you. Otherwise,
I think the only thing that, it wasn't a finding per se, but it addressed how we deal with federal funds and creating a more robust policy.
Yeah.
Especially as we've seen FEMA money come in, CARES money come in, ARPA money come in, but it wasn't significant. It was just something they asked us to improve.
Can we do that?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we have to provide a response. Essentially, what Mr. Kunkel is sharing is that, the city hasn't typically had a lot of federal funding. Typically, those go through the state and county, and so we don't get a lot.
Is what you're saying.
COVID typically, COVID has provided a lot of opportunity for that. So, new auditing firm has reminded us that, okay, you need to have a written policy that wasn't in place with the old firm, so we're working to bring that into compliance. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
My only concern was the same one I had with the previous firm, is that when we get this signed, obviously somebody put this together, and to sign it, Aldridge CPAs, who is that?
Yeah.
And I asked when we had
I was anticipating
Marina,
that you would bring that up.
Somebody worked on this report. If it was the partners or, some other staff person, somebody's name should be on this rather than just that. So that's my suggestion for the future.
Okay.
Other than that, I was grateful that we were able to get Aldridge as a company because our other firm ditched us, so to speak. So we don't have any action on this, so we will just accept it and move on and know that we're going to have a new policy in place to deal with the receipt of federal funds, because this won't be the last that we get. So anyway, thank you for the work. Thank you, staff, for the work on this.
And one other update I wanted to provide, I'm going to ask Chief Band and Mr. Lewis to come up to provide an update on Barker Avenue that's impacted by the South End Road closure, just to give realizing what time it is.
Yeah, I think that I thought you were being very serious tonight because you put your glasses on, so.
This is the first time I've admitted that I have to wear them now. Good evening, Commission. So just sort of a quick, I'll get to just sort of the brass tacks of what I have to say. Since our last meeting, we have had more of a presence there. We assigned some overtime shifts. There's still some posted up on the board, sharing the neighbors' concerns and having officers go out there. I've got a list here of traffic stop stats we've been there a lot in stopping people for a variety of things, including one of the people self-reported that they were here. One of the neighbors that an officer stopped for rolling through a stop sign is actually one of the people who was here that night.
They were rolling through a stop sign?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
So we have been there a lot.
Whoops.
But I also talked to Mr. Farley last night, and he was the first speaker who was here that night. And I don't think I'm going too far to say they're still not happy. There's still a problem. There's still a lot of cars going there. Our officers are there, though. Even the shifts that we're not providing overtime that we're just paying for, regular shifts are going through there. It's fairly quiet in the middle of the day, usually. I go through there a lot myself just to look at things. One of our sergeants said in the mornings he's gone and sat on South End Road when he's just sort of got some time, and he said, when cars come down, I just turn my back wigwags on and they do a U-turn and go the other way. So
What happened to the signs that were posted by the South End grocery store market that said South End closed?
Yeah.
I was over there yesterday. They're gone. Did somebody destroy them?
We had some email traffic. I don't think we know where that one is.
Somebody took it?
Actually, no. So the portable one was continuously being moved.
Yes.
So we asked the county to place road closed ahead signs mounted, don't tell PGE, mounted to the PGE poles on either side of the road so that, again, police could enforce. So it's definitely a different sign, but the barriers were being removed by who knows who.
So people were getting out of their cars and moving
Yes.
the barriers?
Or maybe they live there. I don't
Taking
know.
them away or whatever. Let's check some backyards. They probably got barriers in the
Well,
backyard.
I think we have the barricade, but they're being moved down Lawton, moved down South End. They were just put in different places.
So are we putting them back?
No, we've we replaced that signage with the road closed ahead sign.
The last sentence just the very last thing I'll say is I do not think that we could completely fix what the neighbors are concerned unless we planted a car there 24/7. And that is the only way. There's going to be increased traffic. The whole thing is clunky, but we're throwing a lot of resources into it. And unfortunately, I think we're going to be at best mitigating until the project is done. And I think John can speak to that.
Right, so real quickly, so since we were here last, we committed to fixing the signage at South End and Lawton and Warner Parrott, which happened. I personally have seen the police department there, and I get through there at least a couple times a day, a couple of times, right? Flashers on. I'm afraid to drive down Barton, to tell you the truth, in my personal vehicle, so I'm not going to do that. Again, the speed humps, the extra signage, that's kind of what's shown here. I mean, we've done a lot to kind of send the message to people, so hopefully it's enforceable, and it sounds like it is. The other thing we did was check with the county. That was another thing we were asked to do. So these are just some pictures of the status as of today. So we did talk to the county right after the meeting, but if you haven't been down there, this is what it looks like today. So
we're not supposed to go down there, so.
What's that?
I said we're not supposed to go down there.
That's amazing.
Right.
So.
That's true. That's true. So here you go.
So don't encourage us.
I have never known a roadblock to stop the city commission from going to look at something, just to be fair with that question.
I don't know, you should not have said that. Like I'm official, you know.
You should not have said that.
So anyway.
Do you know the term bounty? Bounty?
So anyway, yeah, they're almost done with the project. They recognize that, they're frustrated too with the timeline. As you know, their project got extended because of some of the existing conditions that they found that required a heck of a lot more concrete work and tieback work with the geotechnical fix. Just kind of looking at the railing, it's going to be significant when done. But what they need to do is pave, and we have not had paving weather. They gave us a schedule, a 3-week look-ahead schedule that showed it done by next week. I think really the 12th of January. But they've also got some pretty big questions around the paving piece because of the schedule. And I just, they need 40 degrees and rising. They're going to get that because the temperature's in the right place, but it's wet. And now I've seen a couple of different forecasts. One suggests chances of rain, maybe not too much rain. So my hope is that they're working on it. I reached out to them yesterday and got a response that really nothing's changed. They just don't have the weather for paving. And, this forecast kind of shows, usually they want predictable dry weather, but we're pushing them on that, and they're kind of recognizing that as well. What they've told us, and this is another thing for the City Commission to understand, is because of the temperature and the weather conditions not being right, they want to put it down so that it's drivable, but they're going to have to come back in the spring and do it when the weather's right. And that'll at least be the top couple of lifts that they'll have to mill off there and repave it. And at that time, our hope is that they do that one lane at a time, flagged only. So that's the update. I think, this is an unusual situation. I don't think we've ever installed temporary speed humps, and I don't think we've ever had the kind of patrol work that we've had on this street. So I know folks aren't happy with it, but it is kind of frustrating that the community continues to use that despite the signage that's there.
Well, we appreciate the update. Just promise us you will not accept South End Road as a city road anytime soon.
I think that would be our decision.
I know, but I don't want to accept that road. All right, thank you, Chief. Thank you, John Lewis. We appreciate it. All right, next on our agenda is hang on here, I just put my agenda someplace else. So we have the appointments to committees, and Thank you to staff for helping me put this together. So we have on your agenda and your report all of the vacancies that we currently have. They're not all filled, but we've got most of them. And many of these, of course, are recommendations, except for Historic Review Board and Planning Commission, from the committees. So I don't think I have to actually ask you for a motion, but I would like you to have a motion to support these appointments, because I think it just looks better.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Right, so we're moving, and we have a second on the mayoral appointments to city boards and commissions, including, we added the Planning Commission and Historic Review Board, and we'll be swearing in the planning commissioners at their first meeting in January, and we have to make some exception for Mr. Powell. He's going to be out of the country, so maybe we can Zoom him and swear him in, and hopefully we can do Mr. Green in person for HRB. So, roll call, please.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Adam Morrow?
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff?
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen. And last but not least, we have updates to Commissioner Committee assignments. And last year, we had this very complicated but very thorough spreadsheet, which I did not really care for, but it was brilliantly executed. I talked with Mr. Conkle, and I said, why don't we just have a discussion about who wants to stay where they are, and if there's, if we want to duke it out, I'm going to hide all the weapons so that nobody starts hitting each other. So I'm putting the gavel away. I would like to keep all of my current committee assignments, but if somebody's dying to do one of mine, we can have a discussion about it. I know Mr. Morrow would like to be on the South Fork Water Board, and I asked Mr. Mitchell to take Mr. O'Donnell's place on that. So let's just run down the list. So Beaver Creek Employment Blue Ribbon Committee is not really meeting, so we're just going to put that on hold. CIC, you want to keep that?
Yes.
Okay. Coordinating Committee.
Yep.
And Mr. Mitchell is on the, do you want to stay on the, can you stay on the subcommittee?
Yes.
Okay. So not I-5, Clackamas, I should say I-5, right? Clackamas County I-205 Tolling Diversion Committee, we have a Commissioner Morrow, and we have an alternate so that he doesn't have to suffer alone. Does anybody would like to take Commissioner O'Donnell's place on that? We need to have our voice in there, even though you're also voicing us, and I'm doing it from the other side. Mr. Mitchell, would you like to take that one?
As alternate?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you want to keep Clackamas Heritage Partners?
Yes.
We probably need an alternate for that. We never have had one, but in case you can't go. I know practically everybody there, so I'll be your alternate for that. I'm going to keep Wes because I'm having such fun with that right now. So.
And Rocky appreciates it.
I know he does. He owes me big time. I'm telling you. I'll wait till later to get my. So Impact. I was appointed to that, and I'm going to be nominated as vice chair of it against my wishes. But I assured Chair Buck that I would do it, but I am not good. I told him I'm not going to be the chair, and I would like to have an alternate for that. And since it's all planning stuff, Mr. Mitchell, would you like to be the alternate? And I promise you I will try not to miss the meetings.
Which one are we?
It's Impact. I was Rachel's alternate since you're the commission president. I never had to go except once.
That's MPAC?
Yeah, Impact.
Okay.
Obviously, the OC 2040 Project Advisory Team, we are done. We don't have to have that committee, but I'm sure you'll have a new one for us to be involved in. Something climate-friendly communities or something like that. So we'll just take that off the list for now. Oregon City Tourism Stakeholders Group, I originally was on that with Commissioner Smith, and I would like to continue to get back on it because that's what screwed me up on the spreadsheet, Mr. Zook. I checked the wrong box. The Oregon City Westland Pedestrian and Bridge Bicycle Committee, it is on hold, so I think we can take that off the list. If it resurrects itself, I will show up. Willamette Falls Heritage and Landings, I'm still on that. I am now the vice chair of that group. Again, I'm not going to be the chair of that at all. So what do you want to do about South Fork? We currently have Commissioner Smith, and myself, I found out I have to be on it, so
Right.
I can't get out of it if I wanted to. Which one of you would like to, you want to flip a coin?
When you said which?
South Fork.
Two. Oh, between.
You two have interest. I asked you to take Commissioner O'Donnell's place.
But Commissioner Morrow wants to do it as well?
I think, well,
Right, yes.
he would like to do it, so you guys work it out.
You want to talk about it?
Yeah, why don't you talk about it?
Or, okay.
We can, do we have our decision-making coin?
Odd or even?
Decision-making coin.
Yes,
Now you
it-
tell us.
Yes, I have a decision. I gave it to staff some years ago. You flip it and it's, he's looking at me like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I guess I'll say, because I'm on there as
Yes.
well. I don't feel like I would like to be off of it. I've been on
Right, so-
there
No,
my
yeah,
entire,
Your entire career.
time. And so and my worry with South Fork especially, other than me, Commissioner O'Donnell was the senior member, but Westland has changed. But, I mean, at least having one of us stay on there, I think
Right.
is
Yeah.
important, because there's
Yeah, and
been a lot of changeover on the board, and
Yeah, and
it'd be nice to have some.
I was staff liaison to it when I worked
Yeah.
for the city, so I was very familiar with South Fork.
Yeah, my interest came when Commissioner O'Donnell originally went on leave of absence. Commissioner McGriff was open to me going in her stead mayor, when she was then commission president, but because of the rules, since she was acting mayor, she was going to take it, even though she had offered the position to me. And so
Yeah,
I was
I
interested.
didn't know I had to go.
So,
Yeah.
If need be, I'll continue to do it, because there's a lot of knowledge up there, especially about water rights and
Yeah, and I'm familiar enough with that as well, to a degree. So you two,
okay.
pick a number between 1 and 10. Okay, I'm picking a number between 1 and 10. Go for it.
Should we just talk?
I want to do it tonight, so pick a number between 1 and 10. Come on.
I don't think that's the right way to decide.
Well, we want to just do it, get it done tonight. There's going to be a South Fork board meeting coming up at the end of the month, I think.
and they got time to talk.
Okay, all right, so get back to me. Willamette Falls Legacy Project Liaisons. Commissioner O'Donnell had been on that, as well as Mayor Rachel L. Smith. Have they had any meetings?
No.
Okay, well, do you want to stay on that? I plan to go when they have one, if and when they have one.
Back you up on
Okay, so
that. That's frustrating.
I know it is, and I have a gavel.
Nowhere quick.
All right, so have you got all that?
Yep, I think so,
Except South Fork.
except South Fork.
There'll be a duel at high noon, and, whoever the winner is will, they'll just let me know.
If they can't make up their mind, I'll step back in.
All right.
The other thing I wanted to mention while we're going through these is that I had talked to the mayor about this, but reorganizing our work session agendas so that instead of going through each committee, we would just go by each person and they would talk about all their committees.
I think that's an excellent idea, and I would definitely recommend that.
One more thing.
Please.
With the Youth Advisory Commission, I would like to request to be the liaison to that once it starts.
Okay, I'll take that under consideration.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Pick a number between 1 and 10. If you guess my number, then you get it, so. Okay, all right. So we don't need to make a motion or anything. This is just, we're doing it, so we're good with that. All right. Communications.
Already gave mine for tonight.
Well, we have 2 upcoming meetings that should be mentioned. One on the 17th, one on the 26th.
Thank you. The one on the
The one on the 17th is really my
is a
deal,
joint
so.
work, meeting with Wes Lynn. The one on the January 26th is the Oregon City's hosting the CCA dinner at First
Clackamas
Street.
Cities.
At, not sure what time that one starts.
6. So the save the date notice has gone out. I had a meeting this past week with the new mayor of Gladstone and the incoming mayor of Milwaukee. They both plan to be there. I forwarded Mr. Milch the save the date because he doesn't have a city email yet, but hopefully he will. They don't get sworn in until the 10th, I think, or something like that. And I want to graciously thank Mr. Lewis and his staff who are going to be hosting us there, and I expect one of your stellar PowerPoints. And we are going to brag up really good on this because, you know, I think we can totally outdo Milwaukee. I love Milwaukee, but, you know, it's Oregon City, come on. And we'll look forward to having all of you at the Clackamas Cities meeting because you're all going to get introduced. What?
When do we start budget discussions?
Mr. Zook, we're going to start budget discussions. We've got some appointments to the Budget Committee. The one thing I forgot to mention on appointments, so I have done interviews with Mr. Zook for members of the Urban Renewal Commission Budget Committee, but we need, as an urban renewal agency, we need to approve those. I've interviewed all the potential applicants with Mr. Zook. So when are we starting? April? They're starting now, but when do we start? Okay.
The reason I asked that is I remember Commissioner Mitchell questioning that the time period we allocated to it is too short for a thorough review. Am I correct in restating that?
That's correct.
So what is the total amount of time we've allocated between the first meeting and potential approval of the budget?
Come on down. One more time.
Right now, we've allocated 4 meetings for the budget. So it'd be I think it was a Tuesday, Thursday, followed by a Monday, Thursday, followed by the next Monday, Thursday.
So 2 weeks, 2 weeks total.
And then obviously it has to be, the goal is to have it adopted before July 1.
You want to move that schedule? I mean, one of the things I've talked to Mr. Zook about is doing a sort of a budget 101 using our current budget so that we could have people Zoom in if they would like, and also our new budget committee members, not talking about the specifics of the current, the future budget, but talking about the process of the existing budget. And we had several of the applicants that interviewed and now are appointed to the budget committee thought that that would be a really good idea to at least provide some input if we have budget nerds out there in our community, which we do. We also have a number of citizens that are on our budget committee that may not need a refresher, but I think it doesn't hurt to have a refresher and kind of go over it again. You know, we're only doing this every 2 years now, so it's not like back when I was working where we did them every year and we started, you know, December 31st, we started back on the budget January and kept going through that cycle. So it's hard to kind of, it's a little bit easier to get out of that mode of thinking about that.
Well, my thought was that it's the financial document that controls operations for a 2-year period.
Right.
And it needs to be thoughtful and well-examined and not done in a compressed time period that's so short that we overlook key features. And that's why I'm supporting what, I just think the time period should be 2 weeks. There's a lot to digest in that document. So I'm supportive of elongating that process if others are.
Well, let's do this. Let's have Mr. Zook take a look at the schedule and have him work with the city manager and see if we can add some additional time. Because we not only have the budget, we have the urban renewal budget as well. And maybe we could meet in the middle somewhere. I mean, I agree with you. I don't want to get down to the end of June and be up against a deadline that we've got to approve it by July 1st or, you know, the whole place implodes. I'd rather have some wiggle room in June.
I would front load it more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. That's what I was asking him to do to see how we could front load that.
Yep, I agree with that.
Okay. All right. So the other date we probably should just make a note of is that on the 21st of January, I think I mentioned this before, I believe at 2 p.m. at the Westland Library, there's going to be a ceremony for the birthday of the Willamette Falls Locks, 150. It's not the 21st, but it's further in the month, just like our December 28th with our bridge. So that's just another date that would be nice to see some Oregon City folks over there. Although the Locks may be in West Lynn, they were significant to our development of our community, and I think, you know, we need to be recognized. Unfortunately, we're not on the Locks Commission, but we have an interest.
I think when they were built, they were in Oregon City.
Well, that might have been West Oregon City.
There wasn't no
Where wasn't
city over there.
No,
at
there
that
wasn't
time.
West Lynn. It could have been,
Leave it to the historians.
it could have been West Oregon City when it was built. So I guess that's our hook for the claim that, we have some interest in it. And then obviously, the meeting with the city of West Lynn, as you may be aware through the news, Councilor Todd Jones resigned as of January 1st, so they're down to 3 people. They have Bill Relier, Mayor Roy I never say his name, Bielostowski, and Councilor Baumgartner. So they're down to 3 people. And
It's their turn now.
yeah, and they are advertising for the vacancy of former Mayor Walter's position, which Todd was filling, so now they're going to try to fill Todd's position. They have an election in March, which I hope will alleviate this situation. But my heart goes out to them, and so we will look forward to seeing them, and I will find out whether they're going to be sending over our pizza orders or how they're doing the pizza.
They also have their separate election for their deferred city council.
Yeah, so I said
election.
May, in March.
I know,
March, yeah.
but in addition to their special mayoral, which will be separate. from
Right,
that.
yeah. So they have, as you know, there was a boo-boo, and so they have an election in March.
Better than us.
I know, it's not us. I know, we're not making fun of them or anything, but
No, we've been through our fair share.
thank you. So anyway, being no further business, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, public, for being here in person and also online and on Zoom. Thank you. And Happy New Year.